He has defended a 2026 finance bill saying taxes on animal feeds have been removed and levies on second-hand clothes reduced to ease the burden on Kenyans. He dismissed claims that mitumba traders are overtaxed, arguing that some critics are not genuine business operators. Mbadi also assured Kenyans that the government will avoid introducing measures likely to attract widespread public opposition.
In a nutshell, there is no more taxes on mitumba. In fact, have you checked? The mitumba people have not been complaining. The people who have been complaining are people on social media who are not involved in mitumba business. But the real mitumba people who met me, they are not complaining. Ladies and gentlemen, look, there is nothing that is which is produced by a human being that can ever be perfect. But we have really tried to make sure that this finance bill is good. We didn't want to again lead Kenyans to the path that Kenyans went through in 2024.
And Bumula MP Jack Mboka says he's no longer interested in retaining his position as chairperson of the National Assembly Public Investments Committee on Governance and Education. Speaking to reporters, Mboka said he's ready to stop fighting for the post and instead focus on serving the people of Bumula. He accused National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula of targeting and harassing him.
They have gone to court of appeal. Who is a complainant? Who is appealing? Speaker Moses Wetangula himself. If you choose to know, the person who represented the speaker in that case was his PA, Milimo. And even now in the court of appeal, it is PA, Milimo. So how can he say he was not involved? But I've said this and I want to go on record. I now don't want that position. Maybe I'll just clear my name na nikuje huku chini sasa tuongee na wananchi tufanye siasa. I honestly don't want. I've done my best. It's been a lot of witch hunt around all this. To an extent that even working as an MP, iko shida.
The MP claimed his troubles began after pushing for more development projects in Bumula constituency. Earlier this week, the High Court temporarily suspended Speaker Wetangula's decision to remove Mboka from the committee chairmanship, and the court ruled that the MP had not been given a fair chance to defend himself before disciplinary action was taken. However, Mboka now says the Speaker has filed an appeal against the ruling, which he claims is meant to continue frustrating him. And that's the news wire. I'm Sheila Tembor.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Broadcasting worldwide, Spice FM. Online, mobile, and on radio. Twitter @SpiceFM KE.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can't run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord. It shouldn't be like that.
I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust.
For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust,
There is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Every time he kept on saying he wants a vibrant opposition.
How does it make sense that public money has been used for everything and then they dare to sell it back to you? Why are they not giving them for free?
That's how broken we are. That's how broken we are.
They're being sent home now for fees. They're going to fail to prepare. We are compromising the futures of these children.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Parliament has got powers. Let me break it down. The National Assembly can initiate an impeachment of the president.
This same National Assembly.
Yes. That's our constitution.
This is just a continuation of the previous administration, which Ruto was part of. President Uhuru himself openly said that we're losing 2 billion daily. Daily. I mean, come on. Are you saying that we don't have a central bank?
If we look at Kenya, both public-private sector, that figure is ranging between 30 to 40%, right?
I think it's clear that the government of Kenya is living beyond its means.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Baba should disown these experts and they say they went there on the because he keep on telling us that these experts you came from Dubai and you found them there already at State House looking for jobs.
Government has to introduce austerity measures. It's something that this government and the previous ones have not been able to do in this country. We've talked about it so many times.
And really, I think you have seen the modus operandi of William Samoei Ruto since he came in. It's just showbiz.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Members of parliament, they go to State House, they just promised they get given tea, mandazi, and 100,000. That's not development.
External borrowing, 589 billion. Are we on the same page? What did Parliament pass?
If anything happened to our president today, God forbid, that man would become president. Na ndio alilenga hizo stories za Shakahola.
The real thing is our constitution has only one person who is accountable to us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
I am also a publicly elected official.
Okay.
My salary is paid by your taxes.
Yes.
So if you need me to answer questions, we will not run away from you.
Asante
We will always be here.
The government itself is engaging in corrupt practices. That the government itself deliberately schemes to influence through bribery members of parliament.
You pay for a passport online. Alafu you're told there are no booklets.
I rebuke matters corruption because corruption has brought this country to its knees.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I'm talking now. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's the 15th of May.
It is.
It's Friday.
Right.
It's 6:13.
Indeed.
It's 2026.
Yeah,
and there's 62 Sundays left until the next general election.
Correct.
How?
Say that last part again.
62 Sundays left until the next election.
Let's go, good people.
And you are wearing my favorite color. I mean, it doesn't get better than this.
It warms up the room, right?
Isn't it, though? There's something about green. It's life.
Yeah.
It's new spring. It's fresh.
Yes.
It's evergreen. It's just life.
Yes.
It's everything.
Indeed.
And there's your morning in numbers. I think I can deliver it. There it is. Is it because it's Friday?
Did you just say numbers? But okay. We shall get into numbers.
Where?
Yes.
Yo. Here's a number for you. 46 shillings.
Even if he cannot smile today.
Even if he's not smiling.
He has refused.
Wait.
The numbers are not numbering.
Is it 42 or 46? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My God.
Is this where they say it's darkest before dawn?
It's actually 46.
Yes, it's 46.
Yeah, it's 46. 46 in one area and it is 20 in another.
Yeah.
The Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority decided that between now and the 14th of June, you shall pay 46 extra shillings from 197 to 243 shillings for diesel, and you shall pay an extra 20 shillings from 196 to 214 shillings for petrol.
Oh.
Yes, this is at least until the 14th of June. So when you've woken up this morning, you will wake up to a number of things that maybe, I don't know what the regulatory authority was thinking or why this had to be. You have to look at the landed cost vis-a-vis the levies that are being applied here and there.
Yep.
The G2G deal some numbers has failed.
Mean the monopoly?
That didn't quite work out.
No.
The Strait of Hormuz still remains an iffy situation. So where are you getting fuel from?
Remains an excuse. Yeah.
As to why you can't get affordable fuel. There has never been such a high increase of petrol and diesel, or fuel rather, in the country ever.
Diesel was like, what, 20%
increase?
Petrol was 10% plus. And so, Kenyans, when your conductor asks you for extra bus fare, if they were charging you 100 and they charge you 120 today,
this is why.
They're not hiking the prices for no reason. This is why. The fuel cost has gone high. Has spiked.
Yes, it has.
Skyrocketed.
You will look at the numbers, but that's what we started with, the morning in numbers, and it doesn't look too exciting because we know for a fact that as a result of this, the cost of living, at least in the next couple of weeks, is going to rise. Everything you do, short of taking a breath, then will be more expensive. How you buy the basic commodities that you will need, how you get from one place to the next, using transport, you putting fuel in your vehicle, you're taking a bus, a matatu, the train. Flying. It doesn't really matter. Save using your legs. Save using our legs and walking from point A to point B. And the advantage there is that you could be a tad bit healthier. However, it looks like it's going to change quite some.
And you know what the two most expensive commodities are today in Kenya? Tomatoes and fuel. Tomatoes and fuel.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we started our morning. We are still going to afford a smile at some point or other, because even if it's the thing that you don't really have to pay much for, you can afford a smile this morning, and that there are some things that we can continually be grateful for. So very good morning to you. We're smack dab in the middle of the month of May, and even as we get into things, have you read about the little red engine that could? That's what EVE looks like today, because she's all in red. Nduh, in most places. She's got the coolest of shoes. I wish, even if she were to stand on the table, I don't know that you would see her. But just take it from me.
I know you wouldn't. I'm just saying.
Take it from me. She looks really good today. Yes. So good morning, Evie. Hope you're well. I can't see you. Even if you're shouting at me or frowning, I can't see you. So just take me as I am. Joy B, good morning. Mutanu has taught us some Kikamba. I think I speak better Kamba than Mutanu.
I would agree.
Sindo?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Given the session we just had.
Given what we've just heard, you agree. Yeah. Thank you. Mutanu, you can take that to the bank. And take it to Matu. All right. A very good morning to everybody, and thank you for joining us in the room today. It is Friday, but that doesn't stop us from having conversations in the Situation Room this morning. I'll let you know what we'll be talking about in just a bit. Also, that fuel shock is going to be one that we need to look into. So let me tell you what the conversations will be in just a minute. We'll start off. Wait a minute. If my phone will just agree to cooperate with me. Yes, I must remind you that our live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Folks are wondering if we're doing that. And a very good morning to our audience on KTN today. Karibu Sana. We're glad that you've been able to join us this morning from wherever it is that we're having these conversations here in Nairobi, through the nation, the region, and the world on the internet. It allows us to have these conversations right here and across the world. Thank you for joining us every morning as you do. We definitely don't take it for granted, and that we need to have this discourse is very important. Joe Kamanya is here, just in case you didn't notice, but he's here. We start off our conversations this morning, the youth perspective, France-Kenya ties. What does it actually mean? We know that there was very youth-centric conversation during the Africa Forward Summit. What does that actually mean? And does the young population really feel as though this is the direction that we're going to go? Angel Mbuthia is the national chairperson of the Jubilee Youth League. Kasmuel Makore is the ODM youth leader. Both of them will join us at 7 o'clock. We'll have a conversation around that, a forward-facing conversation. Knock on wood. 8 o'clock, the game of numbers. Wajiko Thiga is the National Youth Leader DCP. Advice Mundalo is a Leadership and Communication Specialist. The game of numbers, by-elections and State House expenditure. That's what we'll be looking at 8 o'clock. And quite something, because the by-election, we saw a winner yesterday. And what exactly this all means moving forward. Finally, emergency health is a conversation that emergency medicine is our Healthy Friday conversation today. Dr. Sheila Sheikh is an emergency medicine physician at the Aga Khan University Hospital. What does it actually mean? Christina had a question yesterday and says, okay, emergency care, what if somebody has an issue just next to a hospital? What do you do? What does that all mean? And let's talk about what emergency care means. Unfortunately, there have been people who have died because the proper emergency care was not applied. Nobody's saying everybody run away and be a first aid responder or, something like that. But are there things that we can all know in case something happens where we are before, you can get to a medical facility? We'll be talking all around those issues with Dr. Check at 9 o'clock. It's 20 past 6 o'clock. Thank you for being here this morning and getting into our conversations proper. It's our last day in the Kingdom of Eswatini, and you might want to know this. This proverb, I really like it.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out how I would interpret it. So this is why I'm going to cheat.
Sounds
and allow you. Sounds dangerous?
Yes, when you like things. Very dangerous.
When Nduh likes things, or when humans generally like things?
When Nduh. Yes.
Are you trying to say something?
Are you being cryptic? Do like things.
It can be dangerous.
Yes.
This is true. I wouldn't even deny.
Okay.
Well, if you didn't say good morning to us, I'm not liking this story.
Can you see her yet?
No. See you even wave.
I've seen her.
Yeah. See now.
She's even smiling.
My temper has cooled.
She's good. She's
okay.
good.
Thank you. The proverb today: a person whose heart is not content is like a snake who tries to swallow an elephant.
Oh. You see, I said it can be dangerous.
A person whose heart is not content is like a snake who tries to swallow an elephant.
Peace.
Like a river.
Comes from within.
Yep.
It says, like the mouth, the heart speaketh through the mouth or something.
Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
The mouth speaketh.
Yes.
Yeah. So if your heart is not content, I mean, if you as a person, you're not composed, you're not at peace with yourself, you're not yet experiencing serenity in your existence, chances are there'll be disquiet in your relations. How you come out, you struggle to settle because there's disquiet, there's a storm within you. So how you come out is it's always called, it's disquiet, that's how you'd call it. Because there's no congruence in that space, that's how we'd call it. There's no agreement between your internal locus and your external locus.
God, I beg.
Yes.
Wow.
So your inner world dictates how you come out to this outer world. Yes. That's why you hear the struggle of now trying to take much more than you can swallow. The snake yeah.
So the things that you will attempt to do will be ultimately impossible.
Impossible, yes.
If there's a war within.
Yeah. So let's try to be grounded. Let's find congruence. Let's try to set our internal locus of existence.
Not locust.
Not locust, Evelyn.
Evelyn.
No, locus. Your inner world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Oh, I see. That's why I cheated. I had to give it to you first. But absolutely makes sense. And I think we can actually think about those moments when inside is just a mess and everything that you try to do just fails miserably because you've not reached that place of congruence.
Yes. Yebo.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It is.
Yes.
And we all strive, and I hope that we can, at least get to the place where we're, attaining that.
Indeed.
Exceeding that expectation.
Yes.
Right. Audience on KTN, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us as you see us, and those who hear us, and then those who get into the spaces with us, thank you very much. Joe, Kamanya, and Nduh with you this morning into the Situation Room. And as we continue, let me take a minute to say hello to you. Just a very good morning. We can say, I don't know how many languages can we say it. Habari asubuhi, otutuoma, ekaro, inakwana. Those are the three languages, the main ones in Nigeria. How do you... I know how to say good morning in Kikuyu. Wait. I've even forgotten. God in heaven. What to say? Reuri. Don't know again. I've forgotten.
In one word. Where?
It doesn't have to be one word. That's the beautiful thing about language. That language describes the situation, isn't it?
You'd say... Okay, you can say Wemwega.
Wemwega.
That's like yes. Hi, how are you?
Okay.
It's like how are you?
Wemwega.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We keep adding to the bonjour.
Bonjour.
Comment ça va?
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. ¿Cómo está? Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. How is it?
How is it?
How far now?
How far? How body? Very good.
Right.
Okay. So you see now we have said to where did we not go? We didn't go to the Far East. Ni hao.
Ni hao. Sheshe. Yeah.
Okay.
And the Japanese. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Karibu sana, everybody. And we say good morning to you. And let us know what it is that you're thinking this morning. Tell us where you're tuned in from. And as we get into the conversations today, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Bonjour, les amis. Tuned is Laban Motaroki. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. Agucho Gambo says, good morning, tuning from Embakasi. Peter Kiaria is tuning from Mombasa and says, be thankful for what you have. Trust what's coming and let positivity shape your path. Because forward a heart... treat your path forward because a grateful heart attracts endless blessings. Okay, it does. Kimiak, Mayday, Mayday. Have you seen the price of diesel? This is you saying. Have you seen the price? It is not a good morning and nothing good will come out of the KK administration. Unfortunately, Kimiak, you guys keep giving Kimiak something every morning to prove his point. And he's gotten something else to prove his point this morning. So yeah, this is where we are.
He said nothing. You should expect nothing.
He said nothing good will ever come. He says it every day.
Yes.
And then they keep giving him something to tee up with, and he keeps knocking it out of the park.
That's a real prophet right there.
I'm telling you, Kimiaki up to something. Raim Tula Omar says, good morning from Nairobi. Crazy fuel prices. Robert Mbogo is tuned in from Mombasa. Simon Kibiru says, good morning. People raring to go this morning. Joaquin Dungo at the ICC, and then boom. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Well, what are you thinking?
Do tell.
Do tell us what you're thinking. Nick Bala says, good morning. Is it time to encourage town dwellers to turn to bicycles? We could have a healthier population and reduce economic pressure. Or the Gava will tax cyclists to bridge the shortfall. That's really interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting if the people said, you know what, we're going to walk. We're going to ride bicycles. We're going to jog. We're going to carpool. We're going to tell our bosses, allow us to start our day at 10 o'clock so that we can walk to work and then freshen up before we start the day, because this is ridiculous. Good morning, Jennifer. Good morning. It's Kamanya. I know he's probably sleeping at this point, but we greet him otherwise. Hope you're doing well. The math of fuel is not mathing. My Lord, indeed. Tibbs Muge says, good morning, SpiceFM team. A very good morning to you. Isakale. Every morning, Kenya feels like opening a government audit report with a blood pressure monitor nearby. We wake up asking, what exactly was looted while we were asleep, and who called it development? Man, it's la question. I'm telling you. My prince, what's up, family? And Smokey MC Bandit is agreeing with you, Kimiaki. Says 100%. Nada, nothing, no thing, de nada. Il n'y a pas de chose. Nothing is what you're telling us this morning. Diesel is selling at 243 shillings, not 64. Oh, rather, you're saying 264 in Mandera, my prince. This is economic injustice. Why would poor people pay more? 264 in Mandera? We'll verify that, but if that is, it's absolutely crazy. Sasa, somebody is dying. It's because of you, Joe.
Because of me?
Yes.
Can I resuscitate them?
I don't know how you would do that. One thinks that might not be done in this room, but Jennifer says, woo, Joe, you're killing us softly.
Strumming my pain with his fingers.
If you...
Killing me softly with his
song.
Make progress.
Song.
Let's make
okay,
progress.
let's move, because clearly, if you actually know the meaning behind that song. Yeah.
Okay.
Eric Horse says, good morning, guys. You know, you're strategically placed also. If he has put you in a particular position for a particular reason. But I'm moving on.
Do I want to know the reason?
I'm moving on swiftly. I'm moving on. Ramsula says, thanks for bringing Joe. We have EV to thank.
Happy to be here, Ramsula.
And we hope to see him again on Monday. It's not me saying.
Oh, are you sure you're not misquoting?
Well, I ask Evelyn. Even she can see. Mtuflani says, good morning. To the Princess Joe and the squad, we show up and we show out. Always a blessing. Kabisa. Carol Nyambura says, good morning, everybody. Nawapenda sana. Tunakupenda pia, my sister. Have a blessed day ahead. Good morning to you. Smokey MC Bandit says, good morning to all who observe. Who observe what? The day? Josphat and his scarf included. And his green sweater. Someone of significance has loudly declared we are the problem. And I've wondered if they caught some French this week, because who is we? Those who voted for Ruto and those who refused to protest against him are lumping those who didn't along with them. We are not the problem. The problem is clear and the solution is clearer. Wow. Bernard Nyaberry says the government should increase the price of fuel to 500. As in, since you're going, just go.
Just cap it.
Just do 500 shillings. I remember CT said, I remember a while ago, CT said, this thing is going to reach 200, Bob. In fact, why don't they just make it 200 so that we can know where we are going? We move on. And truly, are we not living in those times? Yes, we are living in those times.
Yes, we are.
So he said, just make it 500, as in, why are you waiting? So you just compound the suffering today so that we know where we are going.
Well, then it's going to hit 290 by August.
For God's sake.
Yeah, boy.
Shukiri Nasoro says, good morning, everybody. Very good morning to you. If he should come, we see her. Sasa unaona, sasa mimi nimesema, ni watu wengine, wanataka kukuona, my sister. Leo says, hello, Princess Nduh and Joe. The KK regime will have a long day finding a narrative for the 46 shilling increase in diesel. Is the G2G still working to cushion citizenry, or are we stopping to pay in shillings? That's a good question. But this one, they're going to have a hard time convincing Kenyans that this is the way to go.
They'll give you a reduction of 7 shillings.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Again, last month.
Yeah, reduced by 10 shillings. Then let's see.
Up by what? Was it 20 something?
And then reduced by 10.
By 10. So now we may get
up by 46.
7.
Reduced by 7.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Team Spice, says Young Jedi. It's Friday. Indeed, it is. Patrick Nzomo says, hello, Spice and Nduh. Happy birthday to me. Well, happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday, Nzomo. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bwangi Juma says, good morning, Spice FM. How are you all this blessed Friday? Doing okay? For all the hustlers, fuel prices are. Thank you from the government. Asante ya pundani.
Mateke.
Steve.
Sama asante ya pundani. Fuel price hike.
Asante ya punda ni 46 bob.
46 bob, yes.
Ni 46 bob.
Yeah.
Hello from Roy about the fuel shortage, says Steve. I see you. Good morning, Christina. We need more conversations on teen pregnancy. Invite women rep, discuss sanitary pads. Some of us parents are strict, but we got pregnant the first day, not with older men, but schoolmates. Yes, one of the things that came up yesterday, Christina.
True
you
that.
are right. From Gwangju is Mohammed Noor. Very good morning to you. Rashid says, Juma Karim to all Team Spice. Tuned in from Nyahera. Rose Grace, good morning. Nduh and Joe tuned in from Manara. Good morning to you. Uhuru Warusheni. What does that mean? Kimathi. Kimathi saying that. Maybe I've said it wrong. Probably because I've seen accents and stuff over the U. Margaret Wanjo.
Oh, he's saying... In Kikuyu, you say good morning. To say good morning, you say Ohoro Warusine.
Oh,
yes,
see how I butchered that? Okay, Rusine.
Yes.
Okay. Margaret Wanjo, he says, good morning. Great to be here for the great conversation. Wishing you all a great weekend. Thank you so much. Barry Juma says, Guten Morgen, Oyaore and others. Indeed. Evans Dande, good morning. I'm in this morning. Karibu Evans, good to have you here. Jamil, good morning, Team Spice. Juma Mubarak to you too. Enoch Kanzina tuning from India. Namaste, Kabisa.
Namaste, Vaya.
Exactly. Intro says, someone constantly chasing more inner peace becomes dangerously restless. Their greed overwhelms them, stretching them beyond reason until desire itself makes them suffering. Interesting. Amayo Okoh says, good morning, tuning from Great Rift Valley. Good morning to you. Yes, that's Ohoro Warusene. I'm still butchering it, but I've tried to know. Kennedy Anyona says, good morning, tuned in. Nothing good can come from this country. Whoa. It's unfortunate. That's how we've woken up this morning, but let's see what it then all kind of looks like when we bring it together. Sawa sawa. All right. Karibu Sana, thank you everybody for joining. And even as you join, just know that you are brought in with the sweetest of our welcomes. And thank you for having this conversation with us. We're going to take a quick break, look what's happening in the skies and on the road, and then we'll come back and look into the stories making headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at what it looks like in the skies this morning. Cloudy conditions in Nairobi for the most part of it. At this point, we will see a high of 24 and a low of 15. It's sunny at 14 into Nakuru and mostly cloudy at 15 in Njeri. 19 and sunny in Kisumu this morning. It's 17 and sunny in Kakamega. Sunny conditions through Mombasa at 24 and it's partly sunny at 25 in Malindi. 20 and sunny in Marsabit this morning, and we're seeing clear skies at 20 in Kampala as well. Mostly sunny at 23 into Dar es Salaam, where it's mostly clear at 9 degrees in Johannesburg. Light rain showers in Lagos this morning at 27. It's cloudy at 6 degrees in London and 25 and cloudy out in Beijing, and back into New York, partly cloudy at 13.
Chilled Spice.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, where are you this morning? We're likely to see less traffic coming into the city, being Friday. A lot of folks going out of the city. But if you're around the Pangani underpass heading into the CBD, a little bit of traffic. There's also a bit of traffic as you come past Survey on the Thika Superhighway. But apart from that, really nothing clicking at this point in time. You're going to get where you need to go real quick this morning because no holdups just yet. We're not in traffic hour. Let's see what happens when we get there. We'll talk Spice FM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mobile, and on radio. Twitter @SpiceFM KE.
This May, unlock endless drama every single day on Star Times. Unrivaled stories, characters you can't forget. Recharge your monthly subscription today. More love and burning romance on Come Back to Me. Heartbreaking betrayals on Just Revenge on Novella E+. More secrets on The Brave on ST Swahili. More twists that leave you breathless on Gangs of Manila Season 3 on Novella E. Now on Nyota Bouquet on Ariel and Nova Bouquet on Dish. The drama never stops. To renew your subscription, dial *858# for self-service or get in touch with our call center on 0719-077-077 for customer care. Buy a StarTimes decoder at any of our dealer shops countrywide. Download the StarTimes On app to enjoy all your favorite shows and stream live channels on the move. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, and getting into things this morning is 22 to 7 o'clock and into the headlines on the front page of The Standard this morning. Fuel price shocker. That's what it is. Kenyans woke up today to the shock of the highest fuel prices ever, which will lead to the sharpest rise in the prices of goods and services across board. This exposes the government's continued claims that this exposes the government's continued claims that it had under firm control the fallout of the Iran war with the G2G import arrangement. 197 diesel is what it was yesterday. This morning, as of midnight, it goes to 243 shillings. 196 is what you paid for petrol yesterday. This morning, you'll pay 214 shillings per litre. Kerosene remains the same. That's untouched. Let's see what they're going to do with the toggling of that. But that it means that it's the highest price. It's significantly higher. Somebody just said a litre of petrol, a litre of diesel is the same as a bottle of beer, right? So decide which one you're going to consume and which one will take you further.
Yeah. Well, not that I agree with beer, but also an interesting dynamic happened last night. I did a survey. From around 9 p.m., most of the gas stations or petrol stations decided not to do any more sales. You couldn't buy fuel. Most of them, people can confirm.
Yeah.
Because they were expecting, it was known, and there's always a leakage among Kenya on how the prices are going to tilt.
Yeah.
So from around 9:30 p.m., you couldn't buy. So they were holding, waiting for midnight. So 2 hours later, they changed the pricing, and now Kenyans have to pay more.
Yes.
So also you need to talk about consumer protection. How right is that for them to do?
Yeah.
Because the prices run until the midnight of the 14th.
Yes.
Not until 9 p.m. on 10 p.m.
No.
So
how are you going to protect people around that?
Yeah.
What are we likely to see today? And there's no regulation for that, unfortunately. Is that we're likely to see that as we get into a matatu or a bus today, or you get onto, and this is the weekend, and I really didn't know how many people leave Nairobi over the weekend. I didn't really go out, and a lot of people do. And so what we will see as of this morning is that those who took a trip last week on Friday for a particular price, there will be an increase of that this morning. There will be people who will charge for the buses, the inter-county links and all of this. Anybody who puts a drop of fuel in their vehicle today, doesn't matter if it's petrol or diesel, there will be an increase in price. There will. It's not because they have to add, they have to they have to pass it on to the end user.
Yeah.
And that is what is going to happen. So short of breathing, everything that you will do for easily the next 2 to 3 weeks is going to be more expensive. Do we brace for that? Yes, because that's what's going to happen. And we can hear from people, we'll probably hear from people today.
Yes.
You're leaving the city, or even within the city, or you're wherever you are, it's going to cost you a little bit more to move around.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect everything else. So the person who is taking that tomato for 20 shillings in a vehicle that is going to cost more, are we going to be paying more for that tomato? It's imagery, but the principle is what we're talking about here.
Right.
Nakada report reveals surge of synthetic drugs. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of things like methamphetamines get into the country. The substances are more potent and difficult to detect than traditional drugs such as cannabis and heroin. Investigations disclose evidence of small-scale laboratory activity linked to local production of synthetic stimulants. And so folks are putting this stuff in booze. Folks are injecting it. It doesn't look good at all, and it's turning people into zombies. Nakada saying this is here, and it's bad. United Opposition projected to crush Ruto in 2027 with 76% of total votes. There's this big survey that was done. It was released by TIFA, at the Institute of the what again? I remember it's a research firm. So of course we're looking at numbers in terms of what that looks like. It's a Friday for numbers.
Was it before the fuel spike? Higher price?
That's a good question. It probably was because they revealed them yesterday. So they probably did some time before that.
Okay.
Kindiki says, I was elected, not appointed by Parliament.
Who? Sorry?
Do you know that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is called Kithure Kindiki?
I've heard that.
You've heard him?
Yeah.
Okay. He said yesterday that he was not elected, but he was appointed. Sorry, he was elected and not appointed by Parliament. Just in case you forgot, he was reminding people that I was elected.
I thought he was a lawyer.
Yeah.
So he should understand what elected means, especially in the Kenyan context.
When you are elected, people choose you. They say, of the others, I want this one.
Allow me to remind him.
Yes.
Even the impeached former deputy president was not
elected.
He runs around saying, I had 7 million voters vote for me. He was not. The Constitution allows us to vote for a president. And as a mitigation measure, because things can happen, we don't want there to be a vacuum in power, he must have a running mate. If a deputy president position was elective, we would have had to go for an election to vote in a deputy president after the impeachment. So please, the current and the former impeached deputy president, none of you are elected by Kenyans. That's why you can be fired or hired by your employer, by your senior. Not your Kenyans are your employer, but your senior is a president. So please, point of correction, dear Mr. Deputy President, you are not elected by anyone.
My throat is
Yes.
dry. Yes. It's interesting because there's a whole submissions of this case in court concerning the impeachment of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and what exactly this all means. So he's just reminding people, excuse me. But as you said, no, you weren't.
Yes.
Fury as Jubaland troops set base in Kenya amid rising insecurity. Sorry, how are they just here?
Why? It's no brainer. We just had the French.
So I mean, free for all.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Just come, no problem.
Wait and see.
Yeah, anybody else? Come. Emurua Dikir mini poll marred by chaos amid rival groups clash. We saw that yesterday. I think that we saw the DCP candidate, the UDA candidate win. That public health officers murder sparks outrage as wife is detained. People who are being killed anyhow, I don't understand. The Kenya Environmental Health and Public Health Practitioners Union has condemned the killing of a public health practitioner in Bungoma County, describing it as a cold-blooded murder and called for urgent investigations. That people are taking to death as an option to solve problems, it's very worrying to me. I watched the documentary, as sometimes I normally do.
Right.
And they talked about the difficulty in taking life. It's not an easy thing to do. What it does to your brain. And that's why they say somebody who can go to the point whereby the option is not for us to have a conversation, not for me to walk away, but that to take life. There's a seismic shift that has happened in the mental space. Seismic. And that for that to be the solution, where you need to take life, as in, I don't need you to be alive anymore, whether it is in a position of anger, spur of the moment, whatever it is, violence, there is a shift that has happened in the brain. It is not a normal affair, whether it is an intimate partner relationship, whether it is war, whether it is conflict, whether it is a police officer taking down somebody in the middle of the street. It is not normal. It's not normal behavior. And that we see more and more people life being taken, whether you push somebody off a building in South B, whether you shoot somebody, whether you strangle somebody to death, whether you slice somebody, it's not normal. And it is becoming so normalized that we almost say, somebody killed a housemate because she was sleeping with a husband. Excuse me, leave the husband.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I mean, he already left you.
He already left you, so leave him. You don't have to kill. It doesn't stop that he might want somebody else because you've killed this one. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Something is wrong. There's a problem.
And I do agree. I mean, you realize what we're talking about inner peace and congruence. Because that shift is the power of emotions.
Yeah.
You know, to the extent they blind your rational approach to life, your logical course of action becomes duped, you know, and then you find yourself doing something now in that zone, because the emotions have levels. There are levels you get into that can be very dangerous, not just to yourself but also to other people. And then also remember, anger is a form of energy.
Yes.
So how you dispel it, you know, determines the extent of damage you can cause, because it is always destructive. Always destructive. So we need to find the balance, because again, we can disagree. There can be war, right? I agree. But that can be, maybe that's a different scale of engagement, but especially in our domestic personal relations, we need to keep tabs on how we are lashing out and how we are coming out.
There's a reason, and it's I also the Lost Boys of Sudan, but there's a reason why also the boys of Sierra Leone had to be given drugs to then go and fight to kill people, because they knew that in your normal state of being, you wouldn't do it. This is what I'm saying.
So they numb you either with chemicals, but also, that's why I'm saying anger is also another numbing factor. They have to numb a part, they kind of kill a part of you first. Actually, this is what happens. Psychology will prove it, that a part of you has to die for you to kill someone.
Very true.
So it's very dangerous.
There's something going on, and it doesn't make sense to me. And I said I'm going to look through it. Every day since Thursday last week, every day, there has been a story of somebody who has died at the hands of another for something that could have been avoided. Every day since Thursday last week. Today is day 7. And I was like, maybe I won't find one today. But no, here's another one in Bungoma. No, there's something wrong. And if we don't admit it and start to deal with it, we're just seeping deeper and deeper into the problem. This one doesn't have anything to do with government and fuel prices. No.
Well,
There's
it may.
Oh, it may. But there's dis-ease. There is dis-ease. State plans single funding model for primary and junior schools. Well, hallelujah. Somebody's been listening. Maybe that's going to be a thing. We don't know. Single funding model. One pot, one place. That's the thing that you've been talking about, whereby you have publicly funded education. That all these many funds, bursaries, whatever, you need one pot. Make it a federal system, fund education. I hope that is what they're saying, and that I've not just preempted something that's not the case.
They're asking you to pay via e-citizen.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to be hopeful.
Kamanya already told you. Yes. But that's the ideal situation.
It is.
There should be a publicly funded education system.
There should.
You know, so that these shenanigans of delayed payment, actually there should be no payment whatsoever from Kenyans.
They shouldn't.
The tax should take care of that.
Senators pressure Shah to explain criteria for rejecting 16 billion shillings claims. We had some of those conversations yesterday and still looking to that. That's the Standard. Get a copy of the Standard today, or subscribe to the e-paper and have the Standard in your pocket. All right. To you, sir.
The Daily Nation. Do you know the price of the newspaper?
Of the Daily Nation? Or the other one? You know, it's right here.
And of the Standard?
60 shillings. The Standard is 60 shillings.
And in T shillings?
In T shillings, the Standard is 1,700.
In U
shillings, the Standard is 2,700.
Okay.
Yes.
That's about the strength of our currency.
Isn't it?
If only we focused, life would be good.
Yeah.
Political thunder. He says there was a showdown. Officials projected a 65% voter turnout in the election to replace Johanna Ngeno, who passed on in February. So this is in Emurua Dikir by-election, where he says the political consequences of the Emurua Dikir by-election were always bound to be profound, whatever the outcome. Despite apparent hostility by the electorate, UDA could not contemplate failing to defend the parliamentary seat in a region perceived as the president's turf. The prospect of the area becoming the coronation stage for former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's DCP to secure its first elected MP raised the stakes even higher. So there's a context, as we all know, happened yesterday. Do we officially have a winner? Are we waiting to?
I think we're waiting to hear official announcements today.
We can wait for that. Says there, 2027, Sifuna headache for Ruto. Then the United Opposition. This is the growing political influence of ODM SG Edwin Sifuna is having implications on both government and opposition formations, a new poll shows. The Nairobi senator is emerging as a key contender for the joint opposition presidential ticket, even leapfrogging some United Opposition principles, according to the TIFA survey. Mr. Sifuna's ODM faction is the most popular among party members compared to the rival group that is supporting President William Ruto, further complicating the head of state's re-election game plan, even as his approval rating rose to 24%, up from 19%. Interesting story continues on page 6. Page 2 of the Daily Nation. You were speaking as a one-stop shop for education. Duh. Those moments are short-lived.
Oh, wow.
56.3 billion funding shortfall threatens free education for 6 million learners.
60.
Yes.
Good Lord.
He says around 6 million people in public primary and secondary schools are facing an uncertain future unless Parliament allocates 56.3 billion for free education in the 2026-2027 financial year.
It's too late for that, man.
In recent years, the free primary education and free day secondary education programs have faced funding challenges that have seen schools accumulate debts and others turning to charging parents to cover deficits. That is your CS, as it was confirmed by the majority leader. He has no clue. None other but Julius Pitok, CS Education. Story continues. Political turn on page 4. Sifuna headache, page 6. Page 7 of the Daily Nation. It has the unaudited account of the DTB, Diamond Trust Bank. You see what serious accountants do and serious companies do.
Yes.
So, please, if you see CS Bandi somewhere, tell him he owes us a duty to publish our audited account or unaudited. However, just publish, especially our public debt. We need to know how we are doing as the shareholders of this country. Well, consumers hit as diesel prices rise to 242 per litre. Pump prices have hit a historic high, with a litre of diesel rising by 46.29 to retail at 242.92 effective yesterday midnight. A litre of petrol will jump to 214.25, a rise of Kenya shilling 16.63, while that of kerosene remains unchanged at 152. Well, we see how that plays out, but today we have an interesting story in the Daily Nation.
Okay.
And that will be on, it's like a special.
Yeah.
They're saying born to teens. Speaking about motherhood.
Yeah.
Where 3 children born to teenage mothers reflect on lives shaped by stigma, sacrifice, absence, resilience, and the difficult choices their mothers made while still growing up themselves. So it's talking about teenage motherhood.
What kind of like what we spoke about yesterday?
Yes.
So you can imagine it's just a female having a baby, but it's a lot more than that.
Babies having babies.
Babies having babies.
So they're talking about what happens of those babies that are born by babies.
Yeah.
Because both of them are still growing up.
Yeah.
It's a conversation worth having so that we can ventilate.
I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely necessary.
More stories? Grab your copy.
Yeah, definitely get a copy of that. Also, if you're looking into the Star, real quick on the front page, Ruto tops 27 polls as Sifuna surges to 4 spots. That's again this by Tifa. UDA shines in Emurua Dikir by-election. A woman found dead at boss's home, died of heart failure. Rachel Brenda Opio, the woman who was found dead at her employee's home in Shimanzi, Mombasa, died from a heart attack caused by thyroid complications, in case you're wondering what that was about. Siasa, how Kenya turned the summit into a statement of power. And there were some sessions which we didn't see, then we just started to see over socials where folks were essentially telling France what they really thought. Health, looking at the story of heart failure caused woman's death at her employer's home. Many questions arise, but healthcare costs continue to rise in Kenya. Insurers are increasingly being forced to rethink how medical cover is designed and distributed. An emerging trend, I just want to look at this, is the shift towards community-based insurance models and the making healthcare more affordable through collective participation and pooled risk. This all comes as SHA comes under fire over delayed payments and system failures. There are many insurers. I mean, just think about them across board, from Britam to Jubilee to ICE, all of them. And they're thinking about how they've partnered with folks to launch medical cover targeting members of a particular community, the Sikhs, for example, their families and businesses, industry players, organizing groups such as faith-based organizations, SACCOs and professional associations, help important channels for reaching more Kenyans with structured healthcare support and improving access to quality care across different communities. So just looking at the different things that they can do in little spots and pockets to ensure that, you know, medical health or insurance is reached by everybody. 5.3 billion shilling budget blow. TSC faces new year without injury cover. I'm trying to breathe. Is the tea levy burden or boost? Farmers watching keenly. They're also waiting. Also, farmers in Laikipia reap big from climate smart farming, and I guess that's the way you kind of have to go for some of these things. The Nairobian today is talking about the cartel queen Akinyi. I thought this story was over. Are we not done with this? But apparently it's still a thing.
Yeah.
Dangerous desire. Former club owner Joyce Akinyi's lovers fell. They fell. Her business empire crumbled and was written off, and the life sentence she's serving vanished. After years of narcotics claims, explosive arrests, and a 5.6 million shilling heroin case that nearly buried her forever, the woman once branded a drug queen has walked free again. She's out, guys, leaving behind furious investigators, shattered reputations, and one haunting question: who really is Joyce Akinyi? So she's no longer behind bars. She was supposed to be serving life imprisonment for some of these things. I guess not so anymore.
Well, the courts have pronounced themselves.
Yes, they have.
We wait and see.
We will wait and see.
If there's one institution I hope we can have faith in, it's the judiciary. I know we have complaints and reservations, but I hope that in time we can feel comfortable in knowing that the courts are always acting in the interest of Kenyans and within the law. So that these questions of, investigators, because, don't arise. Some cases when they are resolved, in manners that cannot be explained. Remember, they also put other people at risk.
True.
Because they're the investigative agency, they're the arresting officers, they're the witnesses, So if the person goes scot-free outside the law, that can raise complications.
It definitely can.
Yeah, but also, if the law has deemed it that she needs to be free, she's a Kenyan, everyone has their rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait and see.
We wait and see.
We're also getting into a sporting weekend where the Diamond League is taking place in the East today, and Ferdinand Omanyala will be in fine form from all indications. And we also know that Manchester City is praying that Arsenal loses to Crystal Palace to keep themselves in the running.
They don't need to pray.
They just need to play.
Arsenal is Arsenal.
Okay, looks like it's going to be an interesting one.
It's too far.
Good morning at 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the news. I'm Sheila Tembor. UDA candidate David Kipsang Keter has won the Emuru Dikir parliamentary by-election held on Thursday. The IEBC declared Keter the winner after he garnered 18,266 votes, defeating DCP candidate Vincent Kibet-Rotich, who received 10,760 votes.
So then, as the returning officer for the Emuru Dikir constituency by-election, I want to declare Mheshimiwa David Kipsang Keter as the winner for this by-election.
Other candidates in the race included Gideon Koech of NVPK, who got 190 votes, Desma Cherono of PNU with 80 votes, and Kiprono Rotich of RLP, who secured 62 votes. Tension remains high along the Marsabit-Wajir border over a dispute on the ownership of the T2 area where a multi-agency security camp is planned. One person was shot and injured during protests sparked by the arrest of 2 community elders accused of incitement and links to a militia group, allegations residents have denied. Protesters are demanding the release of the 2 leaders and the suspension of the security camp project until the land dispute is resolved.
Our community is suffering because of land grabbing and our government is silent and we don't know why they are silent.
Ardhi ile tunasema kwa sauti moja kwamba ni amana na ni mali ya jamii yetu, si mali ambayo ni ya kunyakuliwa na wavamizi kwa kutumia njia ya mabavu.
We further condemn the abduction and continued detention of former Chief Barasa Dambi and Elder Gurach Dambala on what we believe are politically motivated and trumped terrorism charges aimed at silencing legitimate community grievances.
Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen says the government is engaging leaders from both counties to find a peaceful and lasting solution to the dispute and prevent further escalation of conflict.
I have been speaking to the leaders from both counties and let's not put timeline. But what is important is that we're seized of the matter and we want to make sure that our people live in peace, and the situation in Basel and any other situation in that area should not escalate conflict, and we will sort out that issue.
And Kenya's nominee for ambassador to Canada and former KRA Commissioner General Humphrey Watanga faced tough questioning during his vetting before Parliament's Defence, Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee. Lawmakers pressed Watanga over his exit from KRA, his leadership style and his suitability for a diplomatic role in Ottawa. Members of the committee questioned why he left KRA before completing his term, with some raising concerns about reports that he was difficult to work with.
Only 2 years in the Kenya Revenue Authority position. Is it because you're a hard, difficult person to work with?
I know there have been grapevine saying that you are fired from KRA.
The interests of the institution and the nation supersede the interests of the person.
Watanga defended his record, saying institutional interest must come before personal interest. He also explained that his request to postpone the initial vetting by 30 days was meant to allow for a smooth handover at KRA. The committee further questioned him after he disclosed that he was still waiting for his university transcripts, one of the required documents for the appointment process.
So your terminal leave had already begun before. Then you still claim it was handing over that made you seek an extension.
I was of the view that it was important to see to it that there is an effective handover. I made the application, but I'm yet to receive and submit my transcripts.
Some MPs also raised concerns about allegations of arrogance and asked what plans he had to strengthen relations between Kenya and Canada.
My colleagues also have met you before, those of you have accused you of wanting arrogance. And the arrogance is detrimental to diplomacy. I have been listening to you, but I have not heard you talk about how you will represent Kenya in Okoh.
My question to him now will just be simple. Do you want this job?
I'm willing and ready to learn as fast as possible.
Watanga's nomination now awaits the committee's decision whether he is fit to serve as Kenya's ambassador to Canada. And that's the news. I'm Sheila Tembor.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Every time he kept on saying he wants a vibrant opposition.
How does it make sense that public money has been used already and then they dare to sell it back to you? Why they're not giving them for free?
That's how broken we are. That's how broken we are.
They're being sent home now for fees. They're going to fail to prepare. We are compromising the futures of these children.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
Baba should disown these experts and they say they went there on the, because he keep on telling us that these experts just you came from Dubai and he found them there already at State House looking for jobs.
Government has to has to introduce austerity measures. It's something that this government and the previous ones have not been able to do in this country. We've talked about it so many times.
And really, I think you have seen the modus operandi of William Samoei Ruto since he came in. It's just showbiz.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're coming into 8 minutes after 7 o'clock, and a very good morning to you. Thank you for being here this morning. And as we continue our conversations, it's Friday. Many things have happened, and we've already been able to deliver the morning in numbers. The numbers are telling you what it looks like. Whether you're looking at fuel prices, whether you're looking at election results, by-election results, the numbers will speak. And as they say, the numbers will never lie. We're getting into a time this morning where we'll have our first conversation for the day. Our live streams are up, YouTube, Facebook, on X, and our audience on KTN this morning. Thank you for being in the Situation Room. And as we get into it today, both our guests are here as we're talking about France-Kenya ties and looking at what happened over this week and where the perspective of the youth comes into all of this. Many conversations were had. One of the big issues was to discuss with youth, with young people in terms of where their countries are going with France. And to help us in this conversation this morning, Angel Mbuthia is the national chairperson of the Jubilee Youth League, and she's here with us this morning. Good morning, Angel.
Good morning, Nduh.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana. I'm happy to be in the home of the boldest newspaper.
Oh, thank you for being here. Caswell Makore is also here, ODM youth leader, and joins us as well. Good morning, Caswell.
Morning, Nduh. It's been a minute.
It has.
Very, very happy to be here.
You're keeping well?
I am.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you both for coming today. As we talk about these things, let's look into them in depth. But first of all, as you know, we go around the African continent. Every week we come into a different country and we come back with their proverbs. This week we've been in the kingdom of Eswatini.
It's a good kingdom, that one.
It is.
Multiple proverbs.
I'm sure.
And other things.
For now, there's a thing called watershed, so let's stay with the proverbs. A person whose heart is not content is like a snake which tries to swallow an elephant. A person whose heart is not content is like a snake which tries to swallow an elephant. We'll start with you, Angel.
Nduh, that reminds me of the Swahili version of it, ile kupasuka msamba. You try to bite more than you can chew. And I think that when I look at my country, I am seeing exactly that. We are digging so deeply into the pockets of the people of Kenya. And very soon it's going to come and bite us back. And I think even there are pastors, and there's a bishop who was preaching somewhere, and he said that the ones who are stealing, they should not steal everything, because they should leave some for those who are coming next. Now we've become a nation that is tolerant to corruption and embezzlement, and we are forgetting that. I mean, how much do you need to live in this world, to survive in this world, at the expense of others, when others have nothing and you have everything? What does it mean? What are you looking? We are still going to end up 6 feet under. I think we need to rethink our choices and stop being this snake that wants to swallow an elephant.
Wow. Eswatini has spoken to you. Okay. Kasma?
I mean, it's... to me, I can't belabor it. First of all, I think the proverb is self-explanatory. But if you just think about it on the surface level, a snake would still get its nourishment if it stuck to rodents. It would still end up with its digestive or biological processes if it took a rat. However, you know, just like the human condition where we always want more and more and more, a snake could most definitely bite an elephant and kill it even, I could argue. However, it's wasteful to both, and we've seen this in, well, like when you see the pythons, we call them omiri in our language. It swallows a whole goat or whatever, and then it ends up dying as well. While it could have, like, it could be symbiotic, where it could have stuck in its lane, had enough of what it's required, and still... because if you try to swallow it all at once as well, that becomes chaotic. And to me, I think it could be looked at the surface level, but also could be looked at the personal level, where sometimes we spread ourselves too thin. But of course, because this is a national conversation, we see this in the permeation of rapid changes, in the undertakings in national undertakings that we might not have the capacity for, whether it's in government, taking on more too much too quickly, or it's in the citizenry as well, demanding for more without the accountability or the structures that are required to achieve it.
Interesting. Very. I keep saying I think the human mind is fascinating, because one thing can bring out so many, angles that we can all learn from.
Right.
So even as we get into this conversation and talking about taking on more than you can chew, it seems as though African nations this week took on a different agenda and said, okay, we're moving forward. I don't know which direction we were moving previously, but okay. It seems as though this week is when Africa now is moving forward. Finally. All right. And that happened because, the president of France made it very clear that he wanted to do this and decided that he was going to do that with Kenya as the co-pivot for this. The youth agenda came into play during these conversations, pre-sideline and post-summit. What are your thoughts? Is Africa now moving forward now that this has been done and the youth have been brought into the conversation?
Well, Nduh, when I look at the theatre which we have had in the past few days, looking at Macron and President William Ruto and their body language, I think William Ruto thought Trump was his role model, but he just found his icon in President Macron. I mean, the run with Eliud Kipchoge, how did that escape William Ruto? That is a perfect PR stunt that he didn't even think about. And when we look at the demeanor of Macron, even when he was speaking to the young people, you saw how he stood up to in a condescending manner, asking people to hush because someone was speaking. And I remember when we were in school, our teachers would, when you make noise in a class, our teachers would ask you to come to the front and say exactly what you were saying at the back. I thought that's what he would have done as a leader, and asked one of the attendees in the forum to come forward and express what it is they were trying to say from the back of the room. And what I saw from Macron is an inspiration for William Ruto, because he is described by the French people as a man who is cold-hearted. He has a personal charm. At the same time, he has an interstellar ego, and he brandishes his presidency as being he likens it to the planet Jupiter, so giving him a Jupiterian ego and bringing him to the fore. In the African continent, he believes in a top-down leadership. He takes little advice from his advisors, something we have seen before here at home, where we have William Ruto, who is only advised by Mungai, and in other occasions are advised by Ruto, in others by William. Sometimes they conflict, and that is his team or panel of advisors. And if these are the people who are coming to the young people of Kenya, this generation, an empowered generation, an educated generation, as I sit here, I can know real time what is going on in Nigeria. I can know in real time what is going in going on in Burkina Faso. I can know in real time what is going on in South Africa. We are a much more empowered generation. We are not in the era where we have to wait for newspapers in the morning to know what has been happening in the region. We are able to access information right from our fingertips. And I believe that the Kenyan government fears our mobile phones more than it fears missiles from Iran or elsewhere in any part of the world. And so looking at that forward summit, and like you rightfully said, you don't know which direction we were, whether we were in the wrong direction previously or which direction exactly we were facing. This is just a perfect platform to colonize the minds of the young people. Because the French and the West African relationship has been marred by a lot of geopolitical hypocrisy. You know, the French like talking about democracy, and in the backdrop, when you go to even some of these West African states, it's a sorry, sad state of affairs. When you're kept in constant wars, you have no time to develop your nation. And when we are in an era talking about peace and security, we are not talking about strengthening our military bases. These military bases are the same ones that are going to be used against young people like myself and Casmuel, I mean the former Casmuel, when we were fighting for the freedom and for the transparency and accountability of our nation. I think that this era is an era that requires more investment in energy, in education, in healthcare, not about military bases. And the West African states have seen how France has been using the narrative of countering terrorism, and that in their way gives them an avenue to penetrate into their states. That Macron says that the West African states should thank France, and these are the right people we are bringing into Kenya, a nation that we love so much, and we are working to build and cut off colonial ties, and we are welcoming them right at our doorstep. I mean, Casmuel's lookalike Tom Mboya, if he woke up today, he would be utterly disappointed by what William Ruto is doing to our country.
Okay. Tom Mboya lookalike? I just picked that up. But that was fun. It seems, I mean, from Angel's assertions, he's not very happy with this because it could have been an opportunity for something else. Was this a way forward? We look at Africa's youth, and if we just look at the last 5 or 4 years, Casmo, that there have been uprisings around nations, whether you look from EndSARS in Nigeria to Give Us Bread in Egypt to what happened in Sudan, if you want to look into Rwanda, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Kenya, Madagascar, led by the youth who have said, you know what, we're taking back our country in one way or another. Was this an opportunity to do that further with the relationship that has been renewed with France?
First of all, I think we ought to look at it from a more balanced perspective, and I understand why Angel would wax lyrical. Again, you know, as the chair of the Youth League of Jubilee, they need to reinvent themselves, and therefore any airtime that can be afforded them, I think she has to capitalize. It is perplexing that Angel just decided to look at the person of Macron and not the contents of the summit or resulting benefits or lack thereof. I expected her as an alumni of the University of Nairobi to highlight that 5.6 billion will be invested in the engineering wing to further stem and hopefully produce minds that will redeem this country. I expected that to be at the front, and this is what happens when you're blinded by negativity. Is we then fail to look at the issues with a fine-toothed comb. The thing that makes it, and that's amongst many other things, I think out of this summit, Kenya has benefited greatly in the sense that there's 127 billion that has been left here. I might have my reservations about France, and because we're looking at it as a youth perspective. There are deeper issues with this, but the reason why Kenya seems as this seems like an opportunity, and I'm thinking about this in a diplomatic sense. Is we do not have previous relations with France. We certainly do not have colonial time with them, but if we are to extend the same for the goose, it must be the same for the gander. It cannot be that, for example, we will cozy up to Britain, we will cozy up to America, and then pretend that when good things are happening to us from France, that this suddenly becomes bad. And I'm saying this fully cognizant of the fact that our generation also we have to step out of hypocrisy. We have to say that we will not work with the global north or with the Western powers, or we will find ways to meaningfully collaborate, and I use this word very carefully, for the betterment of our generation. I'm saying this knowing full well that we're the same people that you find people saying that down with American imperialism, for example, but Angel and I are alumni of the same program that is fully sponsored by the American government. So it cannot be that by day we chant down with American imperialism, and then by night we want to find whatever benefits exist there. And even in the furtherance, of course, I can see what people might be, the pushback might be against, is because we want to tour Paris, we want to all the luxuries and trappings of the French exceptionalism. But what people are pushing back against, of course, is the neo-colonialist aspect of it, where we do not want to be enslaved, or we do not want an extractive or exploitative relationship.
And that makes sense to you somehow?
It does. Okay. I think it does, because we're allowed to want this. We're human. What I think, the extraction, I disagree with as well. So if France were to come in here on an extractive thing, and I see some very valid points where, for example, there are troops that have been brought that are not subject to our judicial systems. I think that is questionable, even in terms of our foreign policy. But then the port in Mombasa, I think there's about 104 billion going in there. Of course, this could be for whatever interest France has, but we also must ask ourselves, are these necessary things? We must either reject them in totality or accept them wholly and find ways of working together, because we cannot remain in a state of perpetual romanticization of conflict, for example. Grasa Michelle was here, for crying out loud. I don't think that Angel, for example, is a bigger revolutionary than Grasa Michelle. She's been the first lady of 2 African countries, and her role in the emancipation of our people cannot be overstated. But she was here at the Africa Forward Summit, and her interaction with the young people, she said that it was precious, and she was saying worth. 2, on the and this could be controversial, but I don't see anything wrong that President Macron did when he stood up and told the room to quiet down. First, that's how I know a person who was following or who was invested in the summit, is that if you're here as young people, because remember, it was young people who were speaking about culture, which is something that is rather important to us. If there are people in a room that you have purposefully decided to go into, that you applied to get into, it's either we do away with this whole thing and say that let's just skip to the concert where all of us can be noisy, or let's listen to what's going on, because we cannot be looking for a few clicks and whatever. Again, contextually, the room was very loud and there were several breakout rooms. So I don't see why. If I would do the same, of course, contextually, you'd say whatever it is, but we ought to respect ourselves first before we demand for respect elsewhere. Because if we were silent, I don't think we would have seen this. We would have used this opportunity to further our agenda in a better fashion. But, yeah.
Interesting. Same event, different, opinions, as it should be. Because again, we come from a different set of, perspectives. Politically, the question is, French is known to be looking for a new home within the continent because they've lost their camp from the west. Now they've come down to the east. And in all rights or manners of them having to do that, as they should, because they're in trade to protect their interest, then there's nothing wrong with them coming to the East African part of the continent. However, the question is, and this, I guess this is what Kenyans are struggling to understand, is that much has been promised, 100-something billion. We still do trade with France, we export maybe 16 billion, but we import around 30 billion. It's an imbalance, but that is fine. But the ultimate question is, the countries where the French is living or has left are not more developed than Kenya. To the extent we would say we welcome them because we can see what they have done in Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and many other places. So why Kenya now? Knowing that, yes, we are the hub of Africa. We know we are trying, as you rightly say, to unshackle ourselves from the colonial systems that have continued to extract and exploit the continent. And if Kenya is seen as forward-looking, hence I guess the name, the Forward Summit, is it the right move for us to make? Are we setting the correct precedent for the rest of the African countries in terms of trying to liberate ourselves economically and also politically? What do you feel about them coming to East Africa, having lost their home in the West African part of the continent, and now they have not left them any better? If I spoke to the youth of the Burkinabes, I'm sure the youth programs that were spelled out 10, 20 years ago have not benefited them, because we would know, as you rightly say, we live in a global village. You can easily tell. We can ask even them now, and they'll tell us. So who is fooling who?
I think there were two people who are looking for homes in this summit. One, definitely the French are looking for a home from moving from West Africa now to East Africa. And then the other person looking for a home is William Ruto once we chase him out of power in 2027, if he does make it that far. And when you are saying that we have an imbalance of trade between France and Kenya, they are looking to expand the Mombasa port, as my colleague Kasmuel here rightly puts it. And from that 100 billion you're talking about, if that port is expanded, it's going to go to 200 million, double, billion. Triple the number is speculative. And for Kenya, maybe slightly higher. But what are we exactly importing to this nation from France? We are importing, fancy suits, big ties, and heavy perfumes. Like my colleague Kasmuel here is a heavy consumer, and I find that is...
he specified he's British.
Point of correction.
He's definitely interested in ensuring that Mombasa port is expanded. And when we look at the West African nations and their democratic ideals, and when Kasmuel talks about I should be excited that there will be some billions going to expanding the engineering wing in the University of Nairobi, and the youth of Burkina Faso will tell me, Angel, hizo ni stories za jaba. We have not had progressive education in our nations from our partnership with the French. And I think in my earlier years, I worked with the All Africa Students Union, and the headquarters are based in Accra, Ghana, and I worked there for a period of 3 years. So I had the privilege of working in a West African country, that is Ghana, and also touring the West African neighbors of Ghana. And I have been to Benin, I have been to Togo, I have been to Burkina Faso, that area around West Africa, and I have seen it for myself firsthand how dilapidated their capital cities are, even leave alone their villages. Everyone's dream is to work hard, get a visa, and go to Paris. That can't be what our nation and our continent is about. And I'd like to apologize to the youth of West Africa on behalf of Kasmuel, because his thinking is wanting. And he does not stand with the ideals of our generation, and it is very sad. When I talk to the West African youth, and they tell me that their reserves are still based in France, well, we are talking about the Central Bank of Kenya kind of model, but based in London. I mean, we would have to be working on a system that
it can be based in London, Angel.
that is based on our former colonial masters. That is exactly what is going on in West Africa, and the French think that they are becoming better, and they're saying that their reserves were 100% at some point. They went to 65 at some point. Now they're submitting 50% as we speak today, and that is the worst form of colonialism ever. And if I was, I didn't have the privilege of attending the summit in the University of Nairobi, but I would have been the first person to quiet down Macron and tell him to free West Africa. I think it's utterly brutal what they are doing to the West African nations, talking about countering terrorism. And in this age and decade, we know that when we talk about peace and security, big conferences across the continent and across the world, when you go into the issues about peace and security, they all boil down to the young people lacking opportunities, lack of employment, lack of spaces where they can freely express themselves. And when I'm sure when William Ruto saw Macron doing that, he was so excited to see him do that. And he admired him in totality, thinking how he can be him and even be better than him. So he should be celebrating. He has found a new home where he will reside in September 2027.
Okay. Sorry.
Kasmal, you look at it from a perspective that, yes, of course, commitments have been made, policies perhaps will be formulated from the summit that could be beneficial to Africa. But you're looking at the original scene, and that's why people seem to be agitated, that French as a country is known to have built its own economy on the backs and sweat and blood of Africa. That goes undisputed. But then you realize that what we're getting are breadcrumbs, and people are saying, yes, I think instead of coming to rescue the country called Kenya, let's build our African Union. So we can free ourselves progressively as a continent. We can do better. We don't need 100 billion. We have that in Kenya. If only we managed our economy better, if only we collaborated better with other regions, either from the global north or the far east, we can still trade and do better. But the art of cooperation is where it's being said that at the end of every summit, because this is not the first one. We've had the Russia Kenyan, Indian Kenyan, now we had the French Kenyan, and many others are going to come. The point is that if we do not take home what is progressively beneficial, not just to the country, but also to the continent, we end up shortchanging now the youth, because the future and the present is the youth. We can talk about sponsoring one institution, but that does not change the fiber of the youthful non-economic enterprise that we are facing in the country.
It actually does.
Not significantly, because it has to be at the policy value level where we know when the current president is not in office, the next regime will still have progressive marks that will be able to say we are able to industrialize, we are able to manufacture. We still export raw materials to France. We should have done value addition, at least 1 more, 2, 3 levels before it goes out there. The same way we do not import essence, we import perfume, right? So you pay premium, and that is beneficial to them. That's the disquiet Kenyans are having. What's your take on that?
Nobody owes us development.
Correct.
I don't subscribe to that ideology. But also, too, what's this Kenyan exceptionalism that why do we think of ourselves as better than the rest of the continent? Who says we're here to set an example? I mean, I'm proud of my country, but we're no better. We're no better than Nigeria, we're no better than South Africa, we're no better than any other nation. So I think we have, first of all, to disabuse ourselves of the idea that we are to set an example. All we're supposed to do is ensure that we develop ourselves as much as we can and improve the human conditions of our people and the people of our motherland, which is Africa, without thinking of ourselves as special, because then we run into very interesting challenges where now I'm lost for words, because then I ask myself, first of all, I say Kenya comes first. So I ask myself, how do these partnerships impact Kenya first? And then hopefully the other countries are going to think of that as well for their countries, and it's going to be better. And it's very interesting that my colleague Angel mentions countries like Ghana, mentions countries like Benin. Those countries were here. They were represented here. So on the one hand, you cannot pretend that you're fighting for them, and some of your facts are awfully wrong. While you wax lyrical, I think it would be better if we kept it factual. Ghana, first of all, was not under French colonialism. However, if you think about it, it's insulting to the people of Ghana to say that you're apologizing to them. They sent their vote, their collective vote was here. The people of Ghana were here. The people of Benin were here. The people of Liberia, the first country that gained independence, were here. The people of Senegal, President Faye was here. So I do not understand what these things of which we speak, that those are the democracies, those are the majorities of their democracies, and I think those ought to be respected. In terms of development, in terms of us advancing an agenda, it cannot be outsourced. We cannot look to France, we cannot look to London, we cannot look to Tokyo, we cannot look to New York or Washington for any of these things. Development of our people must be done by our people. And imperialism, there's all sorts of, very many forms perpetrated by Kenyans. I can say this, that the French have not had a detrimental effect in Kenya as President Kenyatta did. I dare say that. The black man in Kenya has oppressed us more than the Frenchman. It might not be true for other countries, but for the Kenyan context, we cannot look at France as an imperial power and think that France has had greater detrimental effects than Jomo Kenyatta, for example, had. You would think that because he was part of the movement, for example, that gave us the liberation, that he would declassify Mau Mau as an organization.
So just to clarify, you're saying that because France did not have a colonial effect in Kenya, that it's possible that Kenya's people suffered greatly under a leader of its own origin, that there's no reason then why Kenya should not embrace France futurely, which is present.
I'm not even speaking about us embracing. I'm just talking about us looking inward.
Okay.
Because most of the times, the argument that's easy to make is the outward one, is to just lamp France as a colonial power, and now...
Which they are.
Yes, which they are. And I do not deny this. Nobody who has a brain denies this. But and I'm saying this under the pretext that we did not suffer from that.
Okay.
There are countries that were colonized by France that were here. So you want to tell me that suddenly you want to wail more than the bereaved? But two, because we have not examined our infrastructure, our own power imbalances here, and I keep on saying this, that Jomo Kenyatta plunged us into this whole situation. The Mau Mau only becomes decriminalized in 2003, despite them fighting for independence. Through our first two presidents, we do not fight for that. And then now subsequent governments, the massive looting, it was not orchestrated by France, it was orchestrated by our people. For example, the killings, it's not the French doing the killing, it's the sitting governments here. And so we have to ask ourselves that this development thing, what are we doing as Kenya, first of all, for ourselves? Because you think about Africa as a continent. Our collective debt is maybe $1.6 trillion
USD.
The amount that is held in our banks through private sector, so I'm talking your African Development Bank, your African Finance Corporation, your Trade Development Bank, Afri-Exim Bank, the pool of money that we have access to there is 4.4 trillion US dollars. If we wanted to pay off all our debts, we could. But I'm not seeing anybody explore that solution. And that solution, we cannot say that the solution has been hampered or hindered by external Western powers. They could contribute, but we could make a conscious decision and say that as Africa, regardless, we will decide that, for example, we'll pay off debt.
So Africa can actually solve its development problems on its own,
certainly,
if we wanted to.
Yes.
So then, are you giving rise to the argument that then it's not necessary to be buddy-buddy with another nation who's already shown its hand in different parts of the continent? They've shown their hand, let's be honest, and that they've not gone very far off from that hand. If we were to look into what's currently happening with France and its economy and its, its social justice issues here and there, that what they suffer from today, because they do, is not very different from what was happening in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, whereby they were still playing the colonial hand. Now, is it then possible for us to actually agree and say Africa must then focus the youth? And that was a question I was going to ask. What do the youth of the continent want today? The things that keep coming out. Are we hearing leadership? Are we hearing economy-facing countries? Are we hearing coming together as African nations and saying this is what we want? We talk about this 1.3 billion people all the time in just certain parts of the continent. We talk about development. We talk about an age whereby it is Africa's youth who are pushing economies in different countries. These are the things that people want. I'm hearing you say that these partnerships that people are spending days facing forward Africa, they're not necessary if we look at the potential that Africa has to heal itself from within.
I think that partnerships are still necessary, but we have to recalibrate.
But they shouldn't be the focus.
Yes, we have to recalibrate how we approach them, because how else? I think I would jump on any opportunity to have 30 heads of state on the African continent. First of all, if there are 30 heads of state, I think that should be the primary focus.
Led by Africa.
Yes.
Led by Africa. But in this case, what we saw, and I'm sorry to interrupt you because I want to make that point so that maybe you can answer based on that.
Right.
That who should lead this conversation? Because it was very clear that Emmanuel Macron said over and over again that this was my idea, and I spoke to President William Ruto and he agreed with me that we now help Africa face forward, but we're using an external party to face forward on what Africa already knows.
But is Africa facing forward
that was
on
my
its own?
First
yes,
question.
Because I'm looking at it, and until we can face that, I think these partnerships ought to be necessary.
Now that's the question. Is it France that's going to help Africa face forward?
If France is what it takes for us to come together, then let it be France.
Is it?
I'm saying that it shouldn't be.
Okay.
But as things stand, it currently is. I haven't seen. We barely could agree on things like the African Union chairman. We were looking for that. We didn't need France to intervene for that. But we went to Djibouti or whatever. But it's the first time now we're seeing outside this transcended the borders. It's transcended ECOWAS, SADC, EAC, and whatnot. If we can find more points of synergy, if we can find more points of connection without external influence, which is proving to be rather difficult for African heads of states. And by extension,
why
the
is
African
it difficult
people.
in your assessment, which I agree with, but why is it seemingly so difficult? Yet we have the resources, as you rightly put it. In our reserves, we can clear our debts, ODS and sovereign. But why is it difficult for us to come together for a common cause? We even have an organization, African Union, and all the others, the EAC, the ECOWAS, and we have all of them. Why is it difficult for us as a continent to come together and rise to the occasion of liberating ourselves? In your opinion?
Of course, I would love to give an academic, deep answer. But I think simplistically, there are several challenges. First of all, there are cultural challenges, which I don't think are that bad. But it's an ego problem. In the modern day, we all have an ego problem. We usually say that there was Western interference, so that's why, for example, when Gaddafi was killed,
there was.
Yes, there was. I do not deny this. There was, and actually, part of the things, and I know this is outside the conversation. That's one of the biggest problems I have with an Obama presidency, for example, and that's why, for example, I would favor Trump's presidency over Obama's presidency, which is a totally different conversation. Yes. In the sense that, what were they doing bombing Libya 8 months after? There was so much war here, and that's a totally different conversation. If the idea was as romantic as we said it was, the elimination of one leader should have hastened the realization of that dream.
Yep.
Then it means that we're participating in some sort of chicanery, in the sense that we claim that we want a united Africa, but despite being given all the reasons to have a united Africa, it still remains to be one of the most difficult things to do.
And it seems as though Caswell is saying that, and if France is going to come and lead the way, then why not?
Not come and lead the way, come and facilitate us coming together, because it cannot lead the way because we have our sovereignty, for example. It's very hard for you, for example, to come to Kenya and colonize us, at least not now. You could have economic sanctions, you could have whatever, of course, which is also a form of that. But I don't think if we decide as African countries to just do what is do what is right by our people and by our continent.
Maybe a different facing question.
Different front, Angel. Could it be that Macron found it easier to work with President Ruto because he has portrayed himself to be, earlier on people have started calling him the puppet of the West. You look at how he has managed our international relations with Sudan, his pronouncements on Congo, they've always been off the majority of the African position. And when he's out there, he's trying to position himself as the speaker, in quotes, of the African continent. So he's more malleable, likable, usable by them, unlike people who will be seen as antagonists of the West or the former colonies of the African continent. Could there be a possibility that the alliance is based perhaps on their shared ideology, which is still very colonial in my opinion, and that President Ruto has not come out as very progressive in terms of the modern times we are living in, despite the historical injustices Kasmuel mentions, which I agree with. We are in a modern era. We have a new constitution that we gave birth to as a country. But President Ruto was not even able to defend that the other day when he went to Tanzania, and the Tanzanian president was saying you should deal with people like you, because both of you are still in a revolution. The former Kasmuel, not this one. The former Kasmuel and yourself were casualties or victims of what President Suluhu was talking about. And I think the only thing President Ruto needed to do was to say, in Kenya, we have a constitution that provides certain rights for people to agitate, and we have a democracy that is totally different. He could not defend that. Could that be one of the reasons where he's been found more likable, more usable, and easily be used to penetrate the rest of Africa? Because even in business, Kenya is the hub of Africa. Yes. You plug in well, you're able to penetrate the rest of the continent. Yes, I think that your quote for next week should be a Swahili one saying, akili ni nywele, kila mtu ana zake. Right. But wakisikiza Kasmuel najua wanapigwa na butwa.
I understand, but it's not lost on me that Angel has relaxed her hair. It shows that akili yake nayo is inspired by things that are not hers.
But let's not...
foreign.
Yes.
Okay. Like the French.
We know foreign. Stories are jabba.
Yeah, it's as natural as it comes. It's mine. So, and let's not misinform our audience. Kasmuel, Liberia was not the first country to gain independence in Africa. It was Ghana in 1957. I'm saying, it has never been colonized. It was a state.
It was a free state.
It was a free state. I think, let's not misadvise our audience. And coming to what you're painting a picture of William Ruto, I just highlighted who Macron is analyzed by psychologists from across the world. Someone with an interstellar ego, someone who takes very little advice, someone who admires planet Jupiter, and he thinks that he is planet Jupiter and all other planets should be dwarfed around him. That's the personality of Macron. And the people of the French describe the French government as lazy and greedy. So even when we're talking about the French people are totally distanced from this conversation and this engagement. So as we describe the people of Kenya and the government of Kenya, two different people. And when you hear terms like G to G, that is where the scam is. When you hear things like B to B, when you hear PPP, hiyo unajua deal imeivana. Hiyo deal imeivana. Nairobians wanasemanga hiyo ni kipindi rei, deal iko fresh. Because when William Ruto looks at Kenya, we do not have minerals, we don't have gold and oil.
We are not heavy. Inform yourself on the country.
As a country like Ghana, and at such deposits. And when William Ruto looks at wealthy people from West African nations, there's a very huge problem in West Africa where the rich and the poor, the gap is like 1 kilometer, 100 kilometers, like Kisumu and Mombasa. There is no
middle class as you would have it here in Kenya, where former President Mwai Kibaki tried as much as possible to level out our society and give birth to the middle class. That is not present in West African countries. Renting a home in a West African country is difficult. You need to pay a lease of 1 year up front. You can imagine what that does to the young people of West African nations. You have to live with your parents typically until you get married or until you can raise 1 year worth of rent. And that is for a basic accommodation. For accommodation that is good and quality in a reasonable area in the city where you can have access to opportunities, you have to pay as much as 2 years of upfront rent. Same rate as what we have here in Kenya. And here in Kenya, it's easier because you can do monthly payments. As you make your money, you go. So in West Africa, it is characterized by heavy, rich versus poor people in West African nations. And so when William Ruto looks at those nations and the wealthy people around there, he thinks to himself that the best thing I can have is land. So what do? I introduce something called PPP, public-private partnerships. But the P in private is Ruto. It is now an RPP, and I hope Kenyans are very clear and understand that PPP is no longer the private public. It's Ruto public partnerships.
Well, it's not the first time that PPPs are being used in Kenya, Angel. I mean, they've been a method for this development for a very long time.
For this regime, it is quite different. And when you're talking about previous regimes that have had partnerships, we have had UK summit, we have had US summit, but this regime has turned the private to Ruto. When we're talking about a nuclear plant in Siaya, that nuclear plant, the private person that is going to conduct that engagement is Ruto. We saw that with Chan and the insurance scheme that you published on the front page of the Standard. And you said that the reinsurance company that was insuring the tournament was a private individual who had only been registered as a business for 40 days. And they transacted millions of shillings from the Kenyan government. The private in PPP stands for Ruto.
Okay, allow me to ask. Both of you, at one point, agreed on the change of regime.
Yeah, that was a poll. Now we have Sol.
Okay. Now, we are 62, 63 weeks away from the D-Day. Also, Macron is going home, I think, next year, thereabout, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And also we have our outgoing president, William Ruto. And many other countries will be voting, just like they've been voting. We saw the re-election of our friend Yoweri Kaguta Museveni the 7th time. The question is, the youth of Africa, because Africa is our home. We just reside in Kenya. That's how I put it. The youth of Africa need to redefine their own forward summit. How do we craft the democracies that you're going to live in and with for the next 20, 30, 40 years? Because the freedom came in the 60s. Then the democratic space came in the 90s, But here we are. I'm sure we all agree we need economic liberation. That's the revolution we are in as a country, as a continent. It's taking different shapes and forms and different pace depending on the country. Namibia has led with trying to deal with their debts. Mozambique, everybody is there trying to deal with their tuna bond. And everybody else is coming up and saying, you saw the west part of the continent, ejecting the French, as you're saying. There's been discourse. Across the continent, we have so many conflict areas, but the people who continue to suffer are the youthful, the young, and also our resources continue to be plundered and exploited. So at what point are we going to converge and have our own youth summit, not necessarily physically, but ideologically, such that when we call for change of regime, it is a principle, issue, policy-based and driven conversation. We can disagree and agree to agree at the same time. But at what point are we going to converge ideologically and say, it's not about the party that you belong to. It's not about the crumbs you get from the political formation you're in. But it's about realizing that if we do not secure our future now, we are guaranteeing ourselves to be exploited, extracted for the next 20, 10, 40 years.
I think when you speak like that, you speak to the converted. Looking at the TIFA polls that were released yesterday, and 76% of disapproval going to William Ruto is a disapproval rating that has never been seen before. And when we are even talking about Jomo Kenyatta, as Kasmuel mentions it, that former generation, I like to applaud him for what he did to Kenya in the years gearing towards 1963. I have been to Southern African countries and I have seen the scars of apartheid, and you will see the colorism, the colored, the blacks, the whites, and those scars are still there amongst the African people of Southern Africa. When a South African parliament sits, first of all, they discuss who is black, who is white, and who is colored before they talk about education, before they talk about healthcare, before they talk about national security. They talk about the colors of their skin. We have the privilege as a Kenyan nation not to have such conversations in our parliament. When we debate on other issues, but not about color and race. And when we talk about countries who visited and who came from West African nations, and Kasmuel mentions them, they came out of courtesy of William Ruto. It is like if Kasmuel today invited me to his graduation or for his wedding, if he's getting married soon.
God forbid.
Then I will go. I'll go and support him. Not because
out of courtesy.
Out of courtesy as a member of my generation, I'll go, but not because I believe in his ideology. The West African presidents who came here came because they are bosom buddies with William Ruto. If Samia Suluhu is seen around William Ruto, the government of Kenya and the government of Tanzania, G to G is an aspect of gangster to gangster. And when we see William Ruto surrounded by other countries like France, hold on, my brother. When we see William Ruto being surrounded by any country like France, that one is just another gangster being recruited to his fold.
In the interest of time.
So, as I conclude, our generation is convinced that we are at the wrong place and at the wrong time. All we want is honesty. Let's just be honest. If PPP is Ruto public-private, let's just let it be clear.
Okay.
That's why we are offering ourselves to leadership. I desire to be in the next parliament as a woman rep for Kiambu County, and I will deliver the representation that is needed and that is lacking in 2026.
All the best. I think is the youth ready?
We are ready, but part of what I decided to do is I will not be a gentleman any longer about mudslinging. A person like Angel, you would think that she's offering ideological pushback. She is not. Angel and her ilk are deeply tribal people, and I'm willing to prove this in the sense that this ideological awakening that they've had, you did not see Angel protest against President Uhuru. She was a student leader at the University of Nairobi when the Kianjokoma twins were killed. She was a member of Jubilee Party. It is not lost on me that Angel is currently trying to sell us Jubilee back, which plundered this country for 10 years. The greatest tax debt burden that the debt exposure, was undertaken by Uhuru Kenyatta. The presidential candidate that Angel is floating to us was in charge of Interior when bodies were showing up in Rivayala. That's the kind of person that Angel is. So this pushback that you're seeing, you did not see Angel protest when America was here, when Obama came here for the US-Africa partnerships. You didn't see that, despite the fact that we have all sorts of reservations. She was a student leader at the time. In fact, they were begging for the president to come to their school, to the point where President Uhuru, they were bosom buddies. Let me finish. You and Babu at the time, when Babu was writing the letters, I will not take advantage. You let me
Okay,
finish
so what we will do is that we will
finish. Yes, let me finish. Let me finish my point, because I was silent when you were you're finishing your point. She's trying to sell us an administration. They're telling us that it's a change of regime, despite the fact that all this police brutality was happening. She was silent. This red that she's wearing is the color of blood. Yes, the bloggers were still getting lost in their government. The government they're trying to sell us to us again. Now she is mad that I am excited that roads are going to a certain place in this place. She is mad that suddenly, despite the fact that we offered a premier statesman. And remember, I have always said that I think Raila Odinga was the leader this country deserved. Consistently, we were mocked for that. Cambridge Analytica was used to prop their government. Cambridge Analytica spread an anti-Raila rhetoric, which is one of the biggest breaches we've had by her government. Talking about France, the Panama Papers don't list anyone but her party leader.
And I need to remind Angel that you could be an angel of darkness. You could be called Angel, but she's not being truthful.
Okay.
So she wants to call me Saul or Paul or say the former Casmel or whatever. She must be an honest person because we will always...
Yes, you do. But what we're going to do is that we will answer the question at this point, because if we're looking at what the youth, and our time is actually blown, so we'll take maybe 20 seconds to get to the point.
Okay. We are ready, but we have to get past the petty mudslinging and look at what our countries need. We have to ask ourselves, ideologically, are there opportunities for us to collaborate with international partners? It could be cross-border, it could be in Africa, could be outside the continent. But this will not be held on the backdrop and on our personal vendetta against other individuals. If we go on that route, we'll still find ourselves in these positions. We must ask ourselves, what can we do to put Kenya first, to put Africa first? And that's the only way we can move forward.
As you land, Anjo, then a take-home question for you. Because you're accused of trying to sneak back a former regime. You're accused of wanting to sustain a regime that people do not want. Might both of you be in the wrong political formations?
I think that when we say that asking for transparency and speaking on behalf or voicing out the issues of my generation is about pettiness, I think that is the lowest that we can sink. And Casmuel, it is very shaming. And I would like to ask you that now that we are asking for transparency and accountability, when you are standing and in bed with the blood of Rex Masai and Albert Ojwang, people who are fighting for this nation, who you betrayed in your very own sense and spirit, I want to ask you, Casmuel, are you in your right frame of mind?
But when you're eating corruption money, from a drunk president who asks, Sasa munataka nifanye nini?
Okay, so what we're going to do is that we will take control of this conversation. We'll allow you to do something on the sideline. Gentleman and lady, thank you very much.
Show leadership. Be the leaders that you are.
It's 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. Obviously, we're not going to be able to finish this in a sensible manner, but for us to have conversations about where we're actually going as an African continent, it's 2 minutes past 8. Castle Makore, Angel Mbuthia, Asante Sana. Good morning. 8.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Sheila Tembor. The government has raised concern over a major funding shortfall affecting TVET sector, warning that service delivery to students could be disrupted. PS State Department for TVET's Dr. Esther Muoria told the National Assembly Education Committee that the department requires more than 19 billion shillings to sustain student scholarships in TVET institutions. She warned that the funding gap could lead to unpaid debts to service providers, increased student dropouts and possible legal disputes. Dr. Muoria also said an additional 589 million shillings is needed to establish and upgrade workshops in 69 institutions to support modern training equipment. At the same time, the State Department for Science, Research and Innovation has raised concerns over a funding cut after 1.312 billion shillings earmarked for development was withdrawn. Principal Secretary Professor Shaukat Abdul Razak termed the move a violation of budget procedures. The State Department for Higher Education, led by PS Dr. Beatrice Inyangalas, also reported a significant funding gap in the 2026-2027 financial year after receiving nearly half of its budget request for recurrent expenditure. The department oversees universities and agencies including HELB and COOPS and says the allocation will support implementation of the new higher education funding model, student loans and research programs. DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua has once again accused President William Ruto of betraying Kenyans. Speaking during the funeral service of the mother of Yala MP Kanini Kega, Gachagua alleged that the president failed to honor his promises, citing the recent election of Yala MPs as an example.
Sasa walikuwa wameambiwa wajitetee. Maina Karovia akaamuka kujitetea. Akijitetea makofi napigwa na kila mtu. Nikajua mtu yangu amepita. Kura kupigwa. Huyu Karovia akaanguka. Kumbe Ruto alikuwa ameita wa Kalejin, akaambia msipigie Karovia, mpigie mtu mwingine. Wakaangusha Karovia. Nikauliza Ichungwa, what is this? Akaanza kumbe walikuwa wamepanga na Kasongo. So akapanga na Wakalenjin to make sure hakuna mtu ya Mlima Kenya ameenda Yala. So mimi nikamuuliza wewe president, nikatoa uso mkali, nikamuuliza wewe William Ruto, viti 5 ya Kenya kwanza ati hakuna moja ya Mlima, na tulikupatia 47 ya kura. Ni mimi nitaambia watu ya Mlima nini? We gave you 47% of our vote. Hii viti natakiwa tuchukue 3.
And that's the news. I'm Sheila Tembor.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Parliament has got powers. Let me break it down. The National Assembly can initiate an impeachment of the president.
This same
and the
National
Senate,
Assembly.
Yes. That's our constitution.
This is just a continuation of the previous administration, which Ruto was part of. President Uhuru himself openly said that we're losing 2 billion daily. Daily. I mean, come on. Are you saying that we don't have a central bank?
If we look at Kenya, both public-private sector, that figure is ranging between 30 to 40%, right?
I think it's clear that the government of Kenya is living beyond its means.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Members of parliament, they go to settle, they just promised they get given tea, mandazi, and 100,000. That's not development.
External borrowing, 589 billion. Are we on the same page? What did parliament pass?
If anything happened to our president today, God forbid, that man would become president. Na ndio alilenga hizo stories za Shakahola.
The real thing is our constitution has only one person who is accountable to us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Parliament has got powers. Let me break it down. The National Assembly can initiate an impeachment of the president.
This same
and the
National
Senate,
Assembly.
Yes. That's our constitution.
This is just a continuation of the previous administration, which Ruto was part of. President Uhuru himself openly said that we're losing 2 billion daily. Daily. I mean, come on. Are you saying that we don't have a central bank?
If we look at Kenya, both public-private sector, that figure is ranging between 30 to 40%, right?
I think it's clear that the government of Kenya is living beyond its means.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, now that we've had a session with Fire Extinguishers Are Us, we continue into conversations that we're having this morning. 10 minutes after 8 o'clock, it's the 15th of May, and this is the Situation Room. Nduh and Joe with you this morning. We continue in our live streams. They're up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X, our audience on KTN. Thank you for keeping ear with us. And we're looking into the politics of numbers this hour, and we continue our conversation because the game is interesting of by-elections and State House expenditure. We're having those questions today. It seems that there are numbers flying all over the place at us, whether we're looking at who did what and who won where, and what you wake up to in terms of costs and what exactly it all means, this game of numbers. And so we'll have two who join us in the studio today. One of them is already here. Wajiko Thiga is the National Youth Leader of DCP. Good morning, Wajiko.
Good morning. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you for being here this morning. We're looking into some of these things that everybody should be part of a national dialogue, especially when it comes to, conversations around where the country essentially is going. You're also joined this morning by Advice Mundala, who is Leadership and Communication Specialist. Good morning, Advice.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you for being here this morning, both of you.
Asante.
We, as you know, go around the African continent every week. We come back with proverbs from a particular country. This week has put us in Eswatini. The Kingdom of Eswatini has had some fun proverbs this week, and we'd love to get your interpretation of this one. A person whose heart is not content is like a snake which tries to swallow an elephant. A person whose heart is not content is like a snake which tries to swallow an elephant. Wajiko, what do you think of that?
I think it's speaking about greed and that you can never satisfy greed. And there's never enough for a greedy heart, a greedy person. It keeps taking and taking and taking. And, we can just even reflect with our communities today, especially about our public paths. We find people taking and taking. And that's why I think that's a lot of young people are running for office so that we can be able now to start sealing the loopholes that we have, where people are able to, siphon public paths.
Yeah. Advice, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you. I think the good proverb simply means hate is a bad driver. It can drive you to places that you cannot even bring yourself back from. Because once you are driven by hate, you will go to abnormal extents. That's why you will start trying to do the abnormal. So it simply tells us that we must be modest. And in everything, as we try to deal with every other issue, we must ensure that our driving element of it is not hate or the desire to feel ourselves too much. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yesterday we had a conversation around whether these by-elections are a litmus test or a bit of a precursor to what is going to happen come 2027. The by-election that took place yesterday, from all indications, looks like the UDA candidate is going to be declared winner by the IEBC this morning. Of course, going into the night yesterday, it looked like that's what the numbers were. Unofficial results are telling us this. And folks are still holding on to that if you see a by-election that gives you a particular winner, then it's indicative of what could happen in the future. And what exactly this means, that we're looking at the numbers and how much do they matter? Wajiko?
I will start by, even if it's not like officially communicated, but I want to just congratulate the UDA candidate for Emuradikir. Results shows that he won, and I want to really appreciate my political party DCP and my party leader for having the guts to field a candidate in Ruto's bedroom. And DCP indicates that we had around 10,000 votes against UDA candidate who had about 18,000 votes. And this, for me, what does this show? It shows that there's boldness in politics, and that's what politics is about, to field candidates wherever across the country. Number two, we are now moving to issue-based politics. This is in Rift Valley, and we managed to garner about 10,000 votes. So this shows that, the common citizen now is moving away from, political rhetoric. But and back to issue-based politics.
Is it?
Yes.
What issue?
Our candidate back in Emurua Dikir, we had our Honorable Masikonde, who's also in Narok. They talked about the issues of the community of Emurua Dikir and what they will be able to do for them. And being able to, DCP being a new political party, and let me say that we just turned one, so happy birthday DCP. Okay. We just turned one, and a new political party wading waters in a space that is not very favorable for DCP is showing that, and being able to garner 10,000 votes is showing that people are starting to listen. People want change. People want an alternative voice or an alternative government that listens to them. And now, for me, I'm very hopeful for 2027 because as much we've done this by elections, and it is a referendum for change. People are showing that they want change. They want, different voices. They want people who listen to them. And then that means and puts politicians who are going to vie in 2027 that they know that political rhetoric will not take them anywhere. So for me, I know young people do not show up for by-elections. I know that question will come. But also this is to show young people's political consciousness was risen in 2024. This is an electoral cycle this is the first electoral cycle they are coming into contact with. So issues like by-elections are not things they're keen about. They're keen about the general election. But should we have any other new by-elections that will happen before 2027 reaches? My message is just to let young people know by-elections are also as important as a general election.
Advice, do you think that people are looking towards the ideological now as opposed to the political rhetoric that usually claim the day or who has put something in their pocket? Are people actually ideology facing, and could this be an indication of what would happen in 2027?
Thank you very much, Nduh. I think first of all, I really agree. I couldn't agree more with Wanjiku, especially that coming from Wanjiku, that people are starting to be ideologically driven. Our politics, as we continue, every other time you realize that we might not be at 100% yet. But the rate at which the people want the conversation on issues is growing every other day. And that's why even today, when you check across social media, when you sit in the bars and other places, there is one thing that continues to come out, both from the people who are pro-government and those who are against government. They will continue telling you, okay, fine, but what exactly are we propagating? We as an opposition, and you realize people are asking themselves, what is the opposition offering as an alternative plan? So I agree that in truth, there is a rise in the level at which people want issue-based conversation. That's what is given. It might not be at 100%. We might not get there necessarily in the next election, but it started in 2022. The conversation started being more or less about what people are going to do, and it's moving forward. Now, when you look at your next question about our by-elections indicators, and I've always said, and I've said it even here, that by-elections have always been indicators to the general election. It has happened before. It will happen again. When I was in Jubilee, and the person who replaced me in Jubilee was just here with you this morning. And at that time, when we're moving towards the by-elections, we lost all by-elections, and we were government, and we were the ruling party. And we came up with all manner of excuses on why we lost those by-elections. True as it could be, we went to the election and still lost. So the by-elections that are happening today, when you see the results of those by-elections today, they should be able to start showing you what is going to happen in the general election. Remember, the by-elections are not just happening in one region. They are happening in cross-section parts of this country. So it is true that it's actually an indicator. And like what happened in Emurua Dikir yesterday, for me, first of all, it was a show of a lot of gust for DCP to actually field a candidate. And getting 10,000 votes in Emurua was no mean achievement for DCP. It simply shows that you have some level of confidence that some people are having towards your political party, especially being an area that is a stronghold of the president. But it is also important to put it in context that Emurua Dikir is also one of the unique constituencies that we have in the Republic of Kenya. When you look at the 2022 election, the vote difference between Ngeno and the second was roughly about less than 5,000 votes, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, so percentage-wise, that would be very high, probably almost 60-70%. But when you come to the cumulative vote of then the president vis-a-vis Raila Odinga, Ruto still got 93%. So it is quite a tricky kind of constituency. You look at even the nominations in UDA, and there was a very tight race between the gentleman Blue, who was my favorite candidate because he's a young person, and the current winner. It was quite a tight race. So it also shows you that some parts of this country are extremely politically active, and they zero in on the candidate, and not necessarily just the political parties. They zero in on the candidate when it comes to their local issues. Yeah.
Interesting. But sometimes I feel we focus on the result and the outcome. We forget the process.
Yeah.
Right now we're gearing up to the general election next year, you know. And of ultimate concern to every political player is the process. We keep talking about the IBC, you know, and all the other players. What's your take on the process, especially on this, you know, that was just concluded yesterday, the Muradikir? Because concerns were raised. We saw concerns from Kaspul, Malava, Mbeere North, and they seem to keep on repeating themselves. And we all know it is an effort of the different political formations to just assert their authority, their control. And as they do that, they tend to violate the law, you know, the electoral laws that we do have. But what's your take on the process? Even as you congratulate the winner, even as you're happy about the outcome, but what's your take on the process?
That's a very great question, because naturally people don't look at the process. We always look at the outcome. And I want to look at how, even as a political party, DCP, we came out, you know, we had a candidate, first of all, because we had several. And we had to, you know, sit down and have a consensus on which candidate was going to be the flag bearer of DCP. And then going back to the ground and looking at how...
You did not carry out... voting.
No.
It was a consensus building.
Yes, it was a consensus. In all Kalau, that's where we had a nomination. Okay. We conducted nominations. And I want to we look at back in the Muradikir because maybe because this is what has been concluded right now, and look at the campaign and how campaigns were done. And if you could see photos from Muradikir and just talk about even the commercialization of politics that has been such a vice in this country. Muradikir was very different. You know, DCP party is a new party, and we don't even draw funds from political parties fund. But in that community, they understood that we don't have merchandise, so they will buy, you know, the Uhuru bags and wear them, the green bags. And for them, it wasn't about I have to have merchandise. You have to give me something so that I'm able to vote you in. They wanted new change for them, and I saw them, you know, receiving this young man. Our candidate was about 35, 36 years old. And for them, they didn't think about how much money they can get from this candidate. They just wanted to show up for their son. And they just needed somebody as fierce as Ngong used to be. And I watched them. It was a very interesting. I did not have the opportunity to go there, but I kept following up and, you know, making calls with people who are, you know, doing the campaigns down there. And for them, this process, they didn't even look at the governor. They didn't look about the woman. They didn't want to be involved in their politics. They said, for us, we don't care about who the government is supporting or not. It's about this particular candidate. And I could see, we didn't see the usual UDA, you know, strongholds going on ground. We didn't see Farouk Kibet there. We didn't see them. Muradikir didn't want foreigners in their politics. For them, the process was all about them, and they really prioritized what they want. So for me, I was really happy to see politics wasn't commercialized. In at least for our political party, we didn't get to spend, and we don't have that money. But we saw them wearing Uhuru bags on their head, sitting down, listening to our candidate, and I think for me, it changed me. If Muradikir can do that, and advice has said it's such a unique constituency, it's true. I hope that as Kenyans, all constituencies can adopt this model.
If that's the case, and now looking at numbers, because that's what we're saying, that if there really is a clawing towards the ideology and the issues that Kenyans are getting to a point, because like we said, it's indicative, and not just in the results, indicative by the process of what has been happening, or the idealism around political process. If that's the case, and this thing is catching on like wildfire, why didn't we see the vote for that change? And I'm saying this in terms of the results now.
I want to say, and that's a critical question, people still vote along political parties. And you know, political parties are system, and this country, Kenya, is run through a straight system. And this, us as DCP, this was a new political party introducing in Emuru Dikir. And you see, UDA is the current ruling party, and they have the resources, the machinery. And we've seen a lot of them using heavy budgets to be able to influence outcomes in politics. And you cannot excuse, I cannot, really blame the voter, because look at the kind of life we have today. The cost of living is very high. People are selling their IDs. You sell your ID, you don't show up to vote, but you're given something in return. And I think this has been done intentionally by this government so that they're able to manipulate voters. Just like Mbere was also a very, economically disadvantaged area. People are really poor, their poverty is there. So when you introduce heavy sums of money, then you get to influence their decision. So, and you see, many people feel that my issues are not addressed. When I vote for somebody, they leave and they never come back. So let me sort myself, as you, when you get your seat, you go sort yourself out. So I want to say, it is not everybody is embracing this, but we're seeing considerable percentage of people doing it. And I hope by 2027, everybody will be on board that politics must be issue-based and not even personality-centered and not even political party-centered. But I know that at the end of the day, political parties, people vote along political parties. So for us, even as DCP party, we must be able to sell our agenda so that people are able to see, why should I vote for a candidate in DCP?
And we'll come to the agenda issue, advice.
Yes.
As you comment on the process, your view on the process, do you feel this was a win for the party or for the people? In that, if the candidate that won was in another party, would still have been the people's choice, or did he win because he was in that political formation?
That's quite an interesting question. I think let me start with your question on process. And election process is very, very important. If no one better than the Supreme Court has actually assured us that, because at one point we have had our election nullified on the basis of not the numbers, but the process. So it's a very, very important thing. But then what does the process mean? Process actually is about three people in an election: the IEBC, the political parties, and the candidate. The person with the highest responsibility among all these people is the IEBC. The IEBC is the body that we all put our money to so that they can be able to manage the election. And therefore, they must be able to inspire sufficient levels of confidence in the voter. And I've kept saying that as we move towards the general election, it is not about sometimes how fair the election will be. It's about how the people will perceive the referee to be fair. So they must actually do a lot of work in that. And number two is the political parties, because they're the ones who are the custodians. They're the ones who take people to the election. One of the things that I give it to UDA that they have really tried to do is that in all the by-elections, they have always had nominations. So they have always tried to take this power back to the people to pick the candidates. This is one of the things that ate us very badly when I was in Jubilee, that in every by-election, we actually picked the candidates by consensus, and it came back to bite us. So the moment you keep taking the responsibility of choice back to the people, it speaks about how much you actually want to value their opinion. And on that one, in comparison to other political parties, they are really doing very good at that. ODM has also been having that teething issue of direct tickets and giving people directly. And then there's the third issue of the politicians. And we must understand that politicians always take a political stand, not necessarily a factual stand. And that's why there will always be an excuse for an election lost, according to a politician. First of all, there's no politician who loses election fairly. All politicians, in fact, are always position 2 in the election. I have run for election before, and not many people even know the position I came. They just know I was second. Because at the end of the day, you must give your people an argument that sustains you for the next election. And that's why you'll realize that miraculously, in the Emuru Dikir by-election, we are not talking about the votes having been rigged. Why? Because there is a better conversation on percentage. So opposition would rather have a conversation on percentage because they feel like this percentage, perception-wise, it paints a good picture. After all, the people didn't even expect us to win. So why can't we have this conversation about percentage? But when you go to Mbere, where they are expected to win, when they lose, they tell you, no, the election was rigged. So that is the selective amnesia that politicians will always operate with. That when it favors them, they will always look for the point that will favor them. When it doesn't, then that is exactly the point. That's why today, you're not going... I remember I was here, I think it was after one of the by-elections, and the cornerstone of the conversation here was that there was state machinery. The election was rigged and all that. So I wonder, where has state machinery disappeared to Nemuru Adikir? Where has money disappeared to Nemuru Adikir? It is because politicians always argue the point that gives them the premium at that particular level. And that's why I've always argued that Kenyan elections are not rigged. There is even no possibility. There is no possibility. The truth is that those ones who prepare the best for election will win. And that's where UDA has continued to beat opposition. That UDA has continued to be better prepared for the by-elections. And there's a question that Nduh talked about, that might we be speaking from both ends of our mouth when we are saying there is ideology-driven politics, and then you ask, but where was the change in the vote result? And I thought that was very interesting because, number one, change does not always mean, Nduh, that people must vote out government. Sometimes that is the change that they have actually voted for. So sometimes there is change according to what we think and what the people actually think. And when you talk about ideology-driven politics, which is the cornerstone, and you said you'll get to that, people are asking themselves, who exactly, when I'm voting for these people, what is their driving force? They're asking themselves, this DCP, what is their ideology on education? What is their ideology on health? What is their policy on foreign relations? And they can't see. And the moment the conversation goes that way, still government and the ruling party continues to be the one leading the conversation in terms of the ideology. They can be able to say, this is what we have done. This is what we plan to do. Some might not like it, some might like it, but at least this is our plan. And the people are asking, what is the alternative plan? And then you ask me about who is the winner. Is it the political party? Is it the candidate? And I'll tell you that in all by-elections, the winners are always the political parties. In all by-elections. Because the contest there majorly is always about the political parties, because the political parties are always preparing for the general election. And so every by-election is a litmus test. And that's why when you look at the percentage level, most winners of by-elections lose general elections. Because when it comes to general elections, the story now centers down to you, and it moves then away from the political party. Most of the time.
Most winners of by-elections will lose the general election. Okay, this is interesting because we may forget that even the by-election that happened, the ones that happened last year, the one that happened earlier this year, this one, the one that is going to happen in a couple of weeks, the one that will happen in July. These folks are not going to be there for 5 years. They will have to, if they want to, attempt to retain their seat come 2027. So the folks who are getting into these parties today, getting into these positions, only have about a year to go. And that they may, if they feel the need, try to defend their position. So are you saying that there's a possibility that the folks who have won, this one for today, is going to have a rough time retaining that seat, number one, and number two, then is going to probably have to start campaigning now to remain there come 2027?
It is about, election, Nduh, is about momentum. Now, you win an election 1 year, is actually exactly 1 year, 2 months to the next election. After you win, there is a heavy expectation on the people. There is a miracle that the people expect you to perform since you are now in office. The person who loses to you continues with the campaign. Okay? So they don't take a rest. They continue the campaign. So your audit starts immediately. Like you win election on Sunday. On Monday, the person who came second is in a funeral somewhere asking people whether they have received bursary. And you won on Sunday. Now, momentum building there. People are not going to understand the issue of process, that there is a time, then you have to be sworn in, and then there is budget estimates and all these things. These are nice talk show conversations. But when you go down to the ground, the expectation is delivery. And that's why you'll realize that most of the time after the winners, these people win these by-elections, in the general election, even their own political parties that they won on, if they are not very careful and if they don't really do a very good political job, then even the political party changes the candidate most of the time, because then it subjects you back to those nominations, the same nominations. I would want to argue that if you take that gentleman called Blue in Emuru Adikir back to nominations in 2022 with the gentleman who has won election in 2027, back to the same UDA nomination, I argue that that gentleman will win that nomination. Why? Because he will not have burden of responsibility, and this one will now be having something we can blame him about, because in any election the incumbent is always the person who is easiest to defeat. Why? Because he has something that you can blame him about.
But so what time does is that it gifts this incumbent a position whereby nobody has to fault him or her. Time in this case, the shortness of it has gifted this person an almost direct entry into the position, because there's really not much that you're going to say did this person do or not do in a year.
No. There's always something that someone did not do, because on the ground.
But I'm coming based on your argument where you said that an incumbent at a by-election usually will have a better position because there's very little that you can blame them for. So are we saying that that very little blame comes from the shortness of time that they've been in that position, or where does it come from?
I don't think you got me right, Nduh. I said the incumbent will always be the person who has what you can blame them for.
But in this case, these ones won't have that.
They will, because the burden of blame, Nduh, is not on the reality of the subject matter. It is just on the fact that you are the one in office. The moment you get into office, it's like my sister here. She holds substantive office. She leads the young people of DCP. So she has a burden of responsibility. So when it comes to matters young people, when me and her go to I am more likely to win that conversation because I have no burden of responsibility. We can blame her for anything. We can say, why aren't young people being given tickets to run? There is always something that someone in office will always be blamed about, whether it's practical or not. I've sat in a political party. I know the bandwidth of the power of a youth leader. I know it. But when you come outside here to the people don't care. The people are going to give you party leader problems for you to solve. The people are going to give you secretary general problems for you to solve. The people are going to come on the show and argue with you like you are the party leader of that party. Even the people, the aspirants, will call you from all walks of life. People who want to be governor will still call the youth leader to tell them that they need the ticket for that seat. And they will not want the conversation that, you know what, this is exactly what I do. There are some excesses, that there are places I cannot be able to do. And that's what I'm telling you. The moment you are an income, the moment you get, from yesterday, the moment they were, forget the IBC declaration, just the UDA page declaration. They declared them winners on the page.
Yes, they did.
From that day, they became incumbents. From today morning, people want results. I can assure you. Most of those winners today morning, they have people who are in their homes, they want answering.
Now, it's interesting because, again, if you to whom much is given, much is expected. So it's a burden for them to bear.
Yeah, sure.
But also there's the element of now, as you rightly put it, some of the winners may not come back. But if it's a win now for the party, what does that say about the party? You know, so there are all those implications. There are many analyses we could take on that. But I want to talk about the numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers are changing. Well, beginning with the fuel prices. Going to the budget for the State House, right? We just come off from that spending spree of the campaign, and I'm sure we're going to see more because of the upcoming one in July. But the country is also in a crisis because you see a shortage. I think 56.7 billion have not been dispersed to education, 53.7 thereabouts.
Yes.
So we are juggling a lot. And politics ought to be the art of us organizing our society so we can manage ourselves better.
True.
You dare say her party does not have an agenda, and if they do, it is not visible. So, and perhaps that's why people, according to him, were of the opinion, maybe this candidate might be good, but since they're running on this party, what does it stand to offer us, the people, given the challenges we are facing? Which takes now the conversation to an issue-based conversation. But as we look at all that, where would we say, because you're in a party that is seeking to enter the arena, you've done efforts, you've gone for by-elections, you've won some, you've lost others, but where would you say the conversation ought to head nationally? because the party you are subscribed to has been accused of being sort of a regionally affiliated, strongly so. But then the issues we are dealing with, the numbers we are looking at, when you talk about any issue, it cuts across the entire nation. Where do you find the balance between you as a young person who wants change for the country and perhaps being in a party whereby people say this party does not speak to us nationally? Where do you find the balance?
Thank you for the question. I'll first start by responding to advice and his talk on us not complaining about state machinery at Emuru and so on and so forth. First of all, I want just to congratulate IEBC. It has really honestly done a good job. Even with our All Kalau by-elections, they really showed up for DCP.
Nominations, not by-elections.
Yes, because they're the ones who supported, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. You see, even the police at All Kalau, they really were there. We had about 2 or 3 per polling center, and at our tallying center, we also received really great security. So we've seen change from, and you see, as DCP, we've always had, we've faced the brand from the police with our rallies and everything, and we've always communicated to DIG and the IG that we want police to protect us like they protect every Kenyan. And we've seen a change in it. In Emuru Dikir, I want to say that we had also interference. In the morning, I think Kapsasian and Cheleme, we had goons affecting the voter turnout in the morning. And this was something that we expected. And within short time, police were able to mediate. So there's change. And IBC was able to conduct a free and fair process. And that's why even when looking at their budget for 2027, you won't find me even having a problem with it, by the way, because at the end of the day, what we want as Kenya is a free and fair nomination process. If this is the budget they're asking for, to give us a free and fair nomination process, then as DCP party, we should support that. And at this moment, I really am supporting IBC for that budget. But coming back to...
they've asked for a raise to 71
they
billion.
They have. I have seen it.
Yeah.
But for me, if for us to have a free nomination, because already the talks about rigging, you've seen so many politicians talking about how they're going to rig this process. For me, each Kenyan, what Kenyans want in 2027 is just a free and fair process. And then that means that there will be no, violence, because if people rig elections, then the people will revolt. So if IEBC is demanding for this amount to give us a free and fair nomination, then for me, so be it. But can you be accountable to that money? And can we have that process fair? So that as hatutaki watu wa rig, because the ground for us, we are really decided on who we want in 2027. Number 2, to speak about political parties and DCP being, we are the shadow government, and are we speaking nationally to Kenyans? That is a very fair question. And to speak about DCP being a regionally based, like every political party, you have your own strong support base, and DCP's strong support base is from Mount Kenya. But are we fielding candidates everywhere? Yes, we are. We have an MCA today in Kakamega. We have an MCA in Narok. We have an MCA in Nairobi. Actually, we fielded and we won. We fielded in Emuru Dikir. We are speaking to every Kenyan, and this is to show that Kenyans are listening to the message of DCP.
What is that message?
Our overarching message is that we want to reset Kenya. That is our overarching message. We want to reset Kenya. But there are healthcare gaps. Education is becoming, unaffordable in this country. Mental health. Yesterday we just lost Maribel through suicide. She was struggling with, and she was struggling, publicly with bipolar 1 disorder. Mental health is something that as DCP will take very, very critically, because I am a young person and this is a youth agenda for me. And yeah, it's young people who are committing suicide. Substance abuse is on the rise. And you know, our party leader, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, has been a keen and a strong fighter of, illicit brew in this country. And that is where young people have turned to. High cost of living. We want to do this. And look at fuel prices today. In fact, I will say we cancelled the G2G today because this single sourcing is leaving to only one person who's controlling fuel prices in Kenya. If we now cancel it and we allow multiple players to come into the field, then it's going to be competitive, and then we're going to get best fuel prices. So for us, DCP wants to reset Kenya.
Well, there is your advice. Do you feel inclined that you'll be reset?
Resetting Kenya is not a political ideology.
Right.
And I talked about political ideology, that you must be anchored on something. What is your promise? You can't just say reset. Yeah, you must be able to really have tangible deliverables. When you say reset Kenya, what do you mean about the education sector? DCP must explain that when we say we are to reset Kenya, which setting is this that Kenya has that is wrong?
No, with time,
therefore, they want to reset. So we must be able to hear them on education. We must be able to hear them on foreign policy. We must be able to hear them on health. We must be able to hear what are their alternatives. Remember, we are coming from an opposition that was very well led by Raila Odinga. Remember those days when Raila would be able to tell us that when the budgets come out, and they would be able to say, this is our proposed alternative budget. When you're talking about the taxes, we are saying, fine, the taxes still need to be there because you must collect money, but this is what we think is our alternative. On matters of devolution, this is what we think should actually be done. Raila Odinga died saying that I think CDF should be able to be scrapped and this should be able to be taken back to county governments. Not a very popular opinion, because at the end of the day, ideology is not popularity. It's not a popularity contest. It's a depth contest. And that is where most opposition do not want to have this conversation. They don't want the depth conversation. I'm happy that my friend Wajiku says Kenyans are listening to DCP, and that is based on the number of by-elections they have won. Okay? So every place that DCP has won, the election was free and fair. Every place that they have not won.
There are places where we've had a real fight.
So the issue is this, that if, and I agree with her, that where they have won, it's true that Kenyans are listening to DCP. But in equal measure, then that will be able to mean that when you contrast DCP and UDA, Kenyans are listening more to UDA than DCP, because UDA has won the majority of the by-elections.
If you were going by that formula.
If you're going to buy her formula.
Okay.
If we're going by her formula, then Kenyans are actually listening more to UDA, because UDA has won more of those by-elections, including in the strongholds of DCP, or the so-called strongholds of DCP. Remember, DCP is celebrating a 30% penetration in the stronghold of their opponent. But their opponent has been winning in their stronghold. So if you go by that argument, it simply means that they are actually succumbing to the reality that in truth, UDA is actually way ahead of them. Not by my words, but by the DCP's words, which is actually, in my view, a fair judgment, because that's just being truthful. They have championed themselves.
Itching to say something.
They have championed themselves as truthful people. And I'm very glad that they're actually being extremely truthful, because in all truth and honesty, by-elections being looked at, Kenyans are listening more to UDA than DCP. Actually, Kenyans have only listened to DCP in a ward in Kakamega.
Not in a concept.
Listening to, but not listening to.
As you come in, Wanjiku.
Okay.
He says reset is not a policy. Reset is not a formula. And if Kenyans are listening, then it would appear, if you go by the numbers, he could be right. But is the reset formula, agenda you're talking about, less popular than the, what do you call it, the one, what, I don't know what the formula for UDA is, but let's say season 2.
Okay.
And if we are going that the party is winning because of the ideology the party stands for, what does that speak about your reset?
Advice, I think it's been very clear, and I know you've seen. There have been a lot of, especially, let me not talk about this by-election, but the previous one. We've seen a lot of electoral malpractice, especially by UDA. We've seen a lot of injection. And, the sad part is that the money that they use is public purse. Actually, it's money that should be diverted.
Sorry to interject.
Political party, UDA. It's money that is used the money that they use for campaigns, because they inject
How is it public
serious
money? And I'm sorry to
if
do
I
those
did not
words.
I did not interject you. If I could speak,
I'm just...
I beg, you can ask me after I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not interject while you're speaking. There are a lot of injection of money that UDA uses. And you've even had President Ruto speak about the kind of money he even put in Mbere, the state machinery that went to Mbere, and other places that we went. As DCP, we had even fielded a candidate in Barasa. And this is just to show you how we are truly national and moving everywhere. Fielding candidates, giving people an alternative. Because sometimes people vote in the wrong person because they have no alternatives, and we do that. But we've seen even in Barasa, President Ruto, managing our candidates, and they took them.
How?
He was called to State House, and he was given some money. He took that option.
Your candidate, the DCP candidate, was called to State House.
Yeah.
He went to State House with his 2 legs, not shackled by anybody.
No.
Sat down and had a conversation, and according to what you're saying, received money, and then changed his position.
Actually, he stepped down. He didn't vie.
He didn't vie.
He stepped down. You see, there's been intentional, and this is a political party. It's competition. So UDA has the upper hand because it has, state machinery, state power, resources, and this is competition, and they should do that. And I want to say,
should they?
They shouldn't actually.
Okay.
By the way. They shouldn't. They shouldn't do that. But for them to win, that's what they are doing. So according to them, they justify we need to win. Like advice, advice would put it. You see, UDA is winning because people are listening to them more. That's what they want. That's their end goal.
So what you're saying, I'm sorry, so that we can move this.
Okay.
Advice says, based on your formula, that UDA is winning by elections because the people are listening to what it is that they're saying. People are moving towards ideology. What you're saying is that the reason why it would appear as though UDA is being listened to in these areas is because there is the employment of state machinery and resources to convince people of their position. Can we put... today is the day of numbers. Can we put numbers to that and say that the reason why we see winning, because we've got to be objective as much as the subjective matters, we've got to be objective here and say, can we, because this is all formulaic, can we say the reason why there is a greater percentage of wins, representation, is because there is money changing hands, there is employment of state resources and state machinery, with maybe the example that you give of your candidate who left and went to the House on the Hill and came back and was somebody totally different. Can we connect the two and say the wins are equal to the employment of state resources and machinery, and that's why UDA is winning?
I will say yes. I agree with you. And also,
I'm asking a question.
Yes.
I'm asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And number 2 also is that we look at Kenyans today. We have hungry households. Every other day, I have to be invited for a harambe because people are sick. Healthcare is not working. So people are just, have been put in that place so that we can depend on handouts and cash drops. And we've seen this is a regime of handouts and cash drops. We've seen staged empowerment programs just to make themselves popular. I wish they would make systems work. If systems work, then then Kenyans get to benefit more. Today we have interns, teachers who are interns. They have stayed as interns for the longest time, and they've gone to court, and it's illegal. State should even actually employ them. So Kenyans are being put at this disadvantaged place so that they can expect handouts and cash drops, and that's where, when you have by-elections, UDA will win because that's what the money that should be facilitating our systems in Kenya, that's where they use them. So it disadvantages a lot of political parties, especially DCP, because we are among the strongest opposition parties. But I agree that we have to continue And we do this, and that's why we come to shows and we're on rallies on ground, because we try to explain to people how we're going to solve a lot of issues in Kenya. But there are things that were working, like NHIF was working, and that's why we say we want to reset. Because NHIF was working, HELB was working, the new funding model is not working. Well, that's why we are resetting, and it's important that we speak about our policies, and those are things that we shall share on our websites, on our social media, because it is hard to explain policy on top of a journalist.
Of course, there will be time to unveil the manifestos, and that will come. People will interrogate the ideas and see how well they're able to relate with them. And then we see how they play out. But in the meantime, we have an upcoming by-election in July 15th, 16th. They're in about 2 months. How do you call it? Number 2, is your party leader still a member of UDA?
No, he's no longer party leader.
He's not a member of any party.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I you can't speak on his behalf.
Can I respond?
I am his
advice.
Official party official.
Let's hear the unofficial, then we come to the official. Yes.
Once impeached, you cannot be a member. You cannot be able to serve in public office. Political party leadership in Kenya is
for a period of time.
For a period until that impeachment is nullified. Now, political party law in Kenya recognizes political party leaders as public officers. Like, she is a public officer, and therefore, following the impeachment, just the same way Rigathi is not deputy president and cannot be able to run until the impeachment is overturned, he actually cannot be party leader of any political party. But be that as it may, I want to again go back to her argument that state machinery was used, and that is why they lost elections. If the argument is as such, then they'll still lose the election in 2027 because the state will still be here. The state is going nowhere. So that argument is always counterproductive on itself. And then the question is always, where was this? State machinery had not disappeared in Emurua Dikir when they are now celebrating 30% penetration. There was still state machinery. State machinery had not disappeared in a ward in Kakamega that I forget the name, where they won the election. Kisa East. A ward is in fact the smallest unit, which is easy to actually interfere with because those are just 4,000 voters. So if it is a matter of state machinery, they are not even supposed to be having that ward in the first place. So the truth is, the better person who is organized for an election will win the election. All these other things, and I told you in my beginning that politicians will never run out of excuses why they lost. I was in government when we were losing by-elections, and we came up with an explanation. We told our people that, you see what, we want to fool Ruto, so that he keeps winning these by-elections and then surprise him at the election.
So you were lying?
You were lying to the people.
How do you call
the truth is, we were actually just lying and misleading the public. The truth is, we had just lost the election. That is the truth today. I always argue that politics is very simple, and what you see is what you get. When the person leading by-elections today is UDA, be prepared that they will still win the general election. It is just as simple as that. And now, when you come to the question of us speaking from both ends of our mouth, which I hear Nduh being very categorical with, because on one end, we can't be saying that there is growth in the thinking patterns of the people, and then also on the other end, say they have been bribed. Sometimes that is insulting the intelligence of the very voter we are talking about. Because if a person who was your candidate, the moment they change their mind, you accuse them of being bought. The people who go to the ballot to vote, the moment they vote against you, you again accuse them of being bought. It can't be like that all through. And I've always been passionate about this because I was in government at that time.
But are they not bought?
You see, the question of being bought is a question that you must be able to bring when you have empirical evidence. Politics is the art of persuasion. She can persuade me today to join DCP. She doesn't need necessarily to buy me. It's a matter of persuasion. The moment we are on this show, Kenyans are listening to us. They are persuaded by the things that we say. Just because they have joined one side or some people have left government and gone the other side, it doesn't mean they have been bought. Who bought Irungu Kangata recently? It is not always a question of being bought. And so people should be able to understand that politics is the art of persuasion. And the quickest way you start losing election is when, instead of fixing the problem, you run to mudslinging and trying to box the people who are doing better than you into a certain cage. That is the quickest way you always start to lose election. And again, I repeat, saying NHIF was not working is not an ideology. Saying that NHIF was working is not an ideology. Saying that you need us to go back to systems that were is not a political ideology. Because you cannot run on the basis of we are going to take the country back to where it was.
All right. And I don't think that those were ideologies. Those were our political party has ideologies. We want us to discuss our political party.
We don't have time for that now.
Yeah, we
just one. No, we don't have time for that now.
You have to give an official position.
Yes, I want to say this, and by-elections are very, very interesting because it's usually a political party fight. And advice saying that because UDA has been leading by-elections, it will win in 2027. I want to say this. In 2027, kila mtu atakuwa kwake. Everyone will be fighting for their own constituency, governor, what. So you see the resources, human resource, money, everything, it won't be concentrated in one place. It will be spread. And that's why UDA has been winning, because they come to one place, they pour all the resources, and they do have it because they are the ones who are in government today. So in 2027, it will be spread thin. And DCP will have now fair competition because as DCP, we are new. We don't draw funds from the political parties fund. That's why you can see, even in Morwa, we couldn't be able to facilitate kila mtu na kofia. It is we have very thin resources, but we do our best with what we have.
You're saying about
and our political party
membership.
He's not a member of UDA. He resigned. He even shared his resignation. He's not a member of UDA. So
is he a member of DCP?
All to watch.
He's a member.
Wajiko Figure is the DCP National Youth Leader, Advice Mundalo, Leadership and Communication Specialist. Thank you for being here this morning. All of these things are things to watch. Ideology-based, whether the state machinery is being used, what it's going to look like in 2027 might shock everybody. Have a look on all of this and see. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Good morning at 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the news. I'm Sheila Tembor. Siaya Governor James Orengo has stepped up his criticism of President William Ruto's administration, taking his campaign to the grassroots in the Nyanza region. Speaking at rallies in Katito, Nyabondo, Muhoroni and Awasi, Orengo accused the government of failing to honor its promises to residents, including the revival of sugar factories that support thousands of livelihoods. He also alleged discrimination in job allocation within the sugar sector, claiming that most of those employed are not from the Nyanza region.
The people of Awasi are saying they cannot be politically persuaded until you show them or you explain to them why Muhoroni sugar factory is not working. Why is the sugar factory closed for years? And when it is opened, it's just open for a few months. The people of Muhoroni and Nyando want to know why when you employ people, you bring them from other areas.
DCP party leader Rigathi Gachagua has congratulated Vincent Rotich after he garnered 10,760 votes in the Emurua Dikir by-election, describing it as a strong performance. On his X account, Gachagua termed the outcome as a significant political showing and thanking his campaign team and supporters. He also hailed the DCP party's entry into Rift Valley politics, saying it reflects growing political competition ahead of future elections. This comes as the IEBC declared UDA candidate David Kipsang Keter the MP-elect for Emurua Dikir. Keter won with 18,266 votes, defeating Rotich, who came second.
So then, as the returning officer for the Emurua Dikir constituency by-election, I want to declare Mheshimiwa David Kipsang Keter as the winner for this by-election.
The Machakos County government has warned land selling companies involved in the alleged illegal disposal of public land that they will face legal action. County Land CAC Nathaniel Nganga says investigations have revealed that some county and national government officials are colluding with the farms to sell public land and farms unlawfully. He noted that Mavoko constituency is the most affected, adding that the county will work with security agencies to ensure those involved are arrested and prosecuted.
To put on notice real estate agents, land buying and selling companies that are not following the Fiscal Land Use and Planning Act, and the officers that have been abetting those approvals for land subdivision schemes that are not compliant with the law as set out in the Fiscal Land Use and Planning Act of 2019. I want to tell you, we will even also take you to court because you are taking advantage over the residents of this area. You are conning the public by selling to them land that has not respected waterways, that has not respected riparian areas, and that has not respected public utilities. I want to urge you to stop and follow the law.
And former Mbuthia MP Francis Njeri is said to be arraigned today after being arrested over allegations of defrauding a couple of 6.4 million shillings in a land scam in Ngong. Detectives from the Land Fraud Investigation Unit say Githiari allegedly received the money from the couple under a land sale and construction agreement in which he presented himself as both the seller and contractor for a double-story house project valued at 40 million shillings. Investigators say the complainants paid the 6.4 million shillings in installments before raising concerns, prompting investigations that link the former MP to the alleged fraud. The DCI says the ODPP has approved charges of obtaining money by false pretenses. And that's the Newswire. I'm Sheila Tembur.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Every time he kept on saying he wants a vibrant opposition.
How does it make sense that public money has been used already and then they dare to sell it back to you? Why are they not giving them for free?
That's how broken we are. That's how broken we are.
They're being sent home now for fees. They're going to fail to prepare. We are compromising the futures of these children.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
He is himself actually has admitted that he bribed members of parliament, so...
he admitted that he bribed members of parliament?
Well, when he said... The government. Yeah, when he said that he gave the 10 million was for what?
We're always quick to point faults in somebody else before you look at your own faults as a person.
If it was Kanu's day, hii amuka naye leo ungekuwa umeenda mbali sana hii. So when we must celebrate you.
There are 600 million people now globally estimated to be living with diabetes in the world. So it is a major health problem. It's the largest single disease rising pandemic that we're dealing with right now.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 7 minutes after 9 o'clock and into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation for the week and also for this Friday, the 15th. And we ended on a Healthy Friday conversation this hour for us to look at something that has found its way into our conversation really almost every day for, the last couple of months. And this now brings us around the areas of emergency medicine. Dr. Sheila Chek is emergency medicine physician at the Aga Khan University Hospital and is in the hot seat this morning. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I feel like sometimes whenever a doctor asks us how we are, we lie.
That's true. The response is always, I'm fine. And then you get into what is bringing you to the hospital.
Can I just say I am?
Yeah, you can.
Because if I were truly fine, if I was sitting in your office, I wouldn't be there.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm fine.
You're fine. Okay. Good to know.
Karibu sana. Thank you for being here.
Okay.
We would like to welcome you to the Situation Room with our proverb. We go to the African continent every week. We come back from a different country.
Okay.
And we come back with their proverbs. So now when somebody has traveled and they come back and they said, what did you bring me? Well, we bring you the proverbs, okay? Now, we'd love to get your interpretation of this.
Okay.
This week, we're in the kingdom of Eswatini. And this proverb goes like this. A person whose heart is not content is like a snake which tries to swallow an elephant.
Wow. Okay. So a snake cannot be able to swallow an elephant, I mean, logically speaking. So it means no matter what you try and eat, if you don't address the reason for why you're discontent, you'll keep trying to, figure out the next big thing that you feel is going to meet your needs. So I think the root should be to address the source of your discontentment. Yeah.
Figure out what's going on inside, first of all, and then we can deal with the rest.
Yeah.
How's that for something to do this weekend, folks? And especially when we're talking about medicine this morning. But thank you for that. That's great. We're looking at emergency medicine this morning. First of all, when we hear emergency and medicine, we're thinking ambulances flying all over the place and that somebody needs to be administered first aid and that we need to rush them to the... what's that place called? A&E?
Yes.
Accident and emergency. What is that, emergency medicine?
So... basically, an emergency, by definition, is an illness or an injury that can threaten your life or your organ function or your limb. So emergency medicine is basically trying to bridge that gap, okay, by intervening and preventing loss of life, loss of limb, or loss of organ function. So that's where emergency medicine comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, as you say this, I picture the many instances where you're driving down the streets or whatever, and you see that a crowd has formed around an individual, and somebody is saying, "Leta maji, hapana, toa nguo, no, ita daktari." Fan the thing, and we've all everybody's crowded around, and somebody say, "No, move." Is that one of the situations that we'll be talking about?
Yes, yes. Usually in these situations, either somebody has collapsed on the road or has been found unresponsive, and people, by default, you rush to the scene. Everybody's trying to help the best way they know how, and sometimes that can do more harm than good. But so in such a scenario, now we need to have a discussion on what is the most appropriate thing to do when something like that happens. Yeah.
Because emergencies do happen, and they will happen. As you say, maybe from an accident or just the body experiencing some shock, and you know, depending on what the cause may be.
Yeah.
But in terms of appropriateness, in terms of response, which could determine now the next step, whether the person survives, or even when the person survives, sometimes the emergency response that was accorded may cause more harm. May leave you with a condition that perhaps if there was better management during the emergency, it would not have occurred. But what, generally speaking, unless somebody finds themselves into a hospital, they are the mercies of just a well-wisher.
Yeah.
Could be a nurse, could be a friend, could be somebody who has no
medical know-how.
But how is that to be managed, generally speaking, before we get to a hospital setup? When an emergency happens, you don't know whether it's an epileptic episode, maybe it's a road accident, it could be anything. But what are some of the key things to at least try and enforce or be mindful of?
So that's a good question, because statistically, majority of whether it's loss of life or grievous injury has already set in before someone gets to the hospital. So that pre-hospital care, that duration of time before they get to a functioning facility is critical and will determine the course of life. So when such an emergency happens, I think the primary message would be for the well-wishers not to try and cause more harm. So if you don't have the, technical know-how of how to manage an emergency, the best thing to do is to call for help. Okay, I know the emergency response toll-free lines that exist, 999 and 111. So you can dial that, or
anywhere across the country.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's also an app actually called Casualty app that is in Play Store, Apple Store, where you can download and you classify yourself. You say you're not a healthcare provider, but it has it will be able to triangulate your location and triangulate the nearest hospitals and ambulances that are within your reach. And there are also phone numbers available there. So that is what I would say, call for help. Because even as one person, you cannot, you can't work alone.
Yeah.
Even in a hospital setting, doctors don't work alone. We have a whole team. So that is what I would say.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, because sometimes we do more harm trying to help. Now, sometimes we see ambulances running about, and because we have to demystify some of the things we do as Kenyans, so we can be more woke. How important is it to give way to an ambulance?
I think it's one of the road traffic rules, actually, to always give way to an ambulance. Some people assume, this ambulance is trying to beat traffic. That's why, it has the sirens on. But no, as soon as you see an ambulance, whether or not it has sirens on, it is your duty as a Kenyan on the road to automatically give way. Okay. So,
So it could be saving life.
Yeah.
You be a responsible citizen responding to an emergency situation by allowing those who are on their way to or from an emergency situation get there as fast as they can.
Yes.
All right. Do you have enough comfort, in your opinion? Because these are questions that really come up.
Yeah.
The ambulance came late. They came, they did not have water. But, you hear all sorts of comments. Because, again, the emergency response team, the more they are well equipped, the more they are well organized, the more they are well coordinated, the faster they get to the scene, the higher the chances of them being effective. But how is our emergency level response in terms of quality, both in terms of equipment and time, according to you? Where are we as a country?
We are on the right track. Definitely there is room for improvement. Our pre-hospital care is wanting to some level. Yes, we have ambulances, both public and private, but we know the challenge that comes with some of these public ambulances. Sometimes, there's no fuel, there's this and that. So I think, one, also training of the healthcare providers that are emergency trained has been an issue. I think we have about less than 10 emergency medical consultant physicians.
In the country?
In the country.
Less than 10?
Yes, or around 10. Paramedics who are trained in emergency care, about 1,000. There's a program in KMTC. And then we also have nurses who are emergency trained on how to recognize emergencies and sort of push them up the line. So, but I think there's still more that can be done. I know there's a legislation, I think it's in the works, trying to standardize the curriculum for the paramedics, so that, one approach to their curriculum is going to make sure that when care is being provided by a paramedic, it's the accurate thing that is being done. So I think we are somewhere, but there's still room for improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does the law say about how an emergency ought to be handled? And this is not on the street when we're calling 911 or 111. This is at the facility when an emergency has been brought to the A&E and care has to be administered. In this case, where you talk about the threat of loss of life, loss of limb, or loss of, what's the other one?
Organ function.
Organ function.
Yes.
So there is an emergency. It is quite visible to everybody who is there. But the reality of our times is that usually there is a demand for payment before care is administered. What's the procedure? How should it be?
So the Constitution of Kenya is very, very clear when it comes to emergency care. One, every Kenyan has a right to life, a right to dignity, and for that dignity to be protected. And when you're in an emergency situation, basically you are at risk. So the Constitution, I think it's in Article 43 or something, it says that you should not be denied emergency care. When an emergency happens, it is your right as a Kenyan to access emergency medical services. There should not be any question of pay a deposit upfront. And I think there's even a fine of up to 3 million for facilities that try to ask that, but I don't know if it's being implemented. So
it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Really, long story short, it's not being implemented. So that is, the law is very clear that you should be able to access emergency services, even under SHA, for up to 24 hours from the time of this injury or this threat to life occurs. You can go to any medical hospital in this country, and for up to 24 hours, your emergency care will be catered for under SHA.
Who's the person, or who are the people, who's the body that's supposed to be dealing with this matter? Because, Dr. Chek, there are stories untold in great number. People have been at the brink of death. People have been at death's door. People have died at medical facilities because this emergency care has not been administered because people are waiting for payment. Who like if you go today and you've been referred and somebody says, if you don't get this person to the HDU or the ICU right now, this person will die. Who is the person that if you go to and they say, well, pay the 400,000 shillings deposit before we can attend to you? Who's the person that you go to and say, well, you know what, Dr. Chek, these guys told me to pay 400,000 shillings. I was trying to get it together while we were hoping that they would have attended to this person, and they didn't, and my person died. Who was handling that?
So I think I'll first highlight something. So when it comes to emergency care provision, the key is to stabilize this person so that they're no longer at risk. So that is what is critical in such situations. Of course, healthcare is expensive anywhere in the world, more so in this country. So you should not be denied emergency care enough to stabilize you. Now, after you are stable, then perhaps conversations like that can be had as to, perhaps transfer to either a facility that has more, like can offer a better scope of treatment, or if it's an issue of funds, then to somewhere that is a bit more affordable. So I think the Kenya Medical Board and other stakeholders in the Ministry of Health, they are working together to ensure that such conversations about money are not had within that period of time when someone is at risk.
Okay.
It would be interesting to see how that goes, because we've lost quite a number of people. Either they were outrightly denied and they were told you have to go somewhere else if you cannot afford here, and they needed emergency care. Or you've had cases, people were just put in some waiting bay, for processing and all that, and yet the primary, as you put it, should be to stabilize the person, because you're trying to save a life. So it'll be interesting to see how the conversation goes, and hopefully all the players are involved, because again, you don't want a situation whereby you have a policy and it has gaps. Those gaps cost lives. That's the unfortunate bit. But maybe looking from a different angle, what kind of emergencies would you say are more prevalent? The cases you're dealing with mostly. How do they look like? What are the numbers? What are the main causes?
I think the biggest burden of most emergency departments in Africa and even across the world is trauma. Trauma, encompasses road traffic accidents, assault, domestic violence, falls, even industrial accidents that happen in these processing or manufacturing companies. That's the biggest burden that overwhelms the emergency departments. And then also because of the rise of non-communicable diseases, your hypertension, your diabetes, then also there's a burden for stroke and myocardial infarction or heart attack, as people call it. And then we also see a lot of infectious causes like pneumonia, sepsis, and then also maternity-related complications, and environmental or poisonings also happens, like snake bites, scorpion bites, or even whether accidental or intentional ingestion of unsafe substances.
Now you spoke of snake bites. Just recently we had cases whereby in some areas of the country the antidote, you'd call it, was not available. They go to a facility, and unfortunately there's a case where we lost a young girl, I think, and that's just a reported case. So how would you, the equipment, the medicine, the drugs, and all the other apparatus that are needed in terms of supply and access by the medical response team, because if you're in an urban setting, chances are there could be a private facility near you, and they have it. But now, when you hear that, you as a person who is in that space of emergency response, how do you interpret that?
I think I would say in such scenarios, there's lack of a collaborative effort between counties. Because with devolution, we know that provision of services was moved to county governments, and then national government is more about policy. So, yes, it's true. Sometimes in a particular county, they may not have an antidote, but across, the next county, they do have. So there should be some sort of collaborative effort. There should be in place data where we know, this is in stock, this is not in stock. Also, equipping of our accident and emergency units should be a priority, where, you make sure you have emergency trained personnel, you have protective personal equipment, your masks, your gloves, and other stuff. You also make sure that you have the ability to recognize these emergencies and intervene. Now, in the case of snake bites, I know there have even been cases where, yes, the antidote is there, but it expired 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think just having that data and getting the counties to collaborate so that they know this is available here, this isn't available here, so that we can all work together to save life.
Is that conversation happening? Because I'm also looking at cases like from the coast. There are those poisonous fish, let me call them up, the divers, the deep sea fishing crew. Sometimes they'll come up and they need emergency care, and the response is not there. If it is non-national, like now, you can cluster. In my opinion, this region is prone to these airborne illnesses. There could be emergencies. These are the ones, snake bites. Is the emergency team, let me call them that nationally, yearning or working towards organizing themselves, as you say, so there is enough collaboration, knowing that in this area we are prone to this such of emergencies, and therefore we need this sort of equipment, we need this policy at the county level, and the government, the national government needs to come in at this level. Are you having that conversation to ensure that now the response is not just timely, but also effective?
Yeah, so that conversation has been had and is ongoing. There's actually a policy in place that is being implemented. And in this sort of general conversation, it is aiming at making sure that all counties have a functioning and fully equipped emergency unit. So there is a conversation, there are projects that are ongoing through there's a particular foundation, the Emergency Medicine Care Foundation Kenya, that has done a lot in terms of collaborating with the national government to make sure that all these counties are fully equipped. So they have a project, Project 47, that is aiming towards making sure, these services are available across the country.
Okay. What about the importance that is or should be placed on individuals getting that, first aid training, so that in the event that something happens around you, then, at the very basic minimum, you're able to administer some kind of care before then it's escalated? Is that a conversation that is being had or should be had?
So that is a conversation that should be had nationally, actually. There are short courses that are available even for non-medics, available for everyone. There's a basic short course called Basic Life Support that anyone can do, and it's just about recognizing sort of common emergencies and knowing when to escalate care. That's one of the courses that are there. We also have other advanced courses that cater to trauma, cater to cardiac events, pediatric cases as well. So those are the short courses that are available. In terms of training for healthcare workers, we have the paramedics who have a program of their own. We also have emergency programs in Kenya. There's an emergency critical care for clinical officers that's being run in Kijabe and Tenwek. We also have a diploma in primary emergency care affiliated to the College of Medicine South Africa, which is being provided in Aga Khan University, and it trains medical officers in providing primary emergency care. So those are some of the things that are available for both non-medical care personnel and healthcare workers.
Do you foresee a situation? Well, I mean, the basics that you need if you're in a home setting, but should everybody have that? You know how at some point they made sure that everybody's vehicle needed to have a first aid kit. Also for vehicles, and then also would you need one in your home as well?
I think it would be, that would be my recommendation actually. If we can get basic life support to be inserted into all curriculum out there, whether someone is in a medical related course or not, such that even when you're in an unfamiliar setting, you know what to do when an emergency arises. So having some of these basic equipment like gloves, so that, because even when providing care, one is asking for help, and another basic thing is to making sure that you yourself are safe. So having, your gloves, so that you don't come in contact with contaminants. Just being around your environment is something that should be policy. I think so,
Okay, so now when we look at what the law says and what the common practice is, oftentimes we are not quite sure how to wade in the middle of those waters. That do people then take decisions whereby it is the looking after human life that takes priority over the rest, or trying to meet the bottom line? And as a medical practitioner, obviously leading thought from an institution, what should it be? Now we're going a little bit subjective. What should it be, regardless of what the bottom line may be or what policy takes place?
So I think the bottom line should be provision of urgent care when needed to stabilize and save life. That should cut across institutions, whether public or private, whether it's pre-hospital care. Sometimes we've had scenarios where you call an ambulance and then they say, okay, you have to pay first before we get you to the hospital. So it should cut across, whether it's in the hospital or out of hospital setting. That should be something that Kenyans should know, that it's within their right to access emergency services without being asked to pay for money upfront.
The county system in the country creates a bit of an imbalance, in this sense that not all the facilities that are available in one county would then be available in another. Is there an overall general conversation about creating that balance to ensure that you don't have to have people in an emergency situation moving across counties to then get care. That at the very least there should be, that I could be wherever, but that I can be assured that that first primary state of care is administered and not having to move, exacerbating the situation by having to travel. We told the horror story last year of a woman who was in, I don't know if it's called protracted labor, and went to a hospital which should have offered the care, but she had to travel 2 counties because they said, here, we can't help you. That's an emergency situation, and she had to travel. The general conversation, leading thought around what should be to ensure that at whatever port of call you go to, that you will then receive the emergency care that you need. Is that a conversation that's happening, and what should actually be done to ensure that that is the case?
So I'll talk again about how important collaboration is, because for low to middle income countries, even the basic doctor to patient ratio, when you take into account population of a place, it's not optimum yet. So some of these conversations are much deeper or much larger than just the provision of care. It encompasses staffing, and not just staffing or having this medical personnel, but them having that training to know how to handle an emergency. So I'd say that we are not there yet in terms of having enough personnel, but when it comes to provision of care, it is true that there are some facilities that do not have that capability, and that's why we have levels. We have, your dispensary, your health center, then you have your sub-county hospital, county referral. So it's important that even when Kenyans are going to seek emergency care, they have some sort of knowledge when it comes to what possible services can I get. For example, if I go to a dispensary, perhaps I may only get first aid or be patched up so that I'm okay enough to get to where I need to go. So that's a much deeper and larger conversation that I'm aware is being had by both the national and county governments, and I think we are on the right track.
But now looking at the standard of practice, what is the appropriate response time to an emergency situation, and what is our Kenyan response time?
It's funny you ask that question, because I know there are situations where an ambulance has been called and it fails to get there, or citing, send money for fuel fast or whatever. So the recommended response time should be 5 to 10 minutes, depending on where this emergency is located. Of course, there are some areas that are harder or deeper to reach. I only know that in Nairobi County, we are trying, but upwards of 40 minutes to 2 hours. So you're 4 times late.
Wow. And yet life depends on it. Well, there's another interesting dynamic that sometimes does not play out in the medicine arena about development, how we organize our roads, accessibility, because maybe the 40 minutes some minutes can be attributed. It's not an excuse for you to come 40 minutes later, but I think you can see how it can play out. Are you even at an advisory point? Do you have those platforms that, as this conversation happened about equipping, the personnel, equipping maybe the ambulances and the facilities, but also we, as we organize our country, we need to have controlled development that also allows timely response, and improves on the quality of accessibility. Or again, perhaps the question would be, do you feel comfortable in our setup of our country in terms of order, organization, vis-a-vis accessibility?
I think when you talk about the development and roads, that might be a bit out of my scope. But what I can say is you find in some of these countries, they have dedicated lanes for ambulances or emergency services, which again helps to shorten the time between when an emergency happens and when someone gets to hospital. But I know that these policies exist, and the challenge is with implementation, because like I said, the national government is responsible for creating this framework and policies, and the county governments should implement. So there's an issue on funding because, again, not all counties get the same distribution of funds to be able to provide such services. So I think at this particular point, perhaps what can help to mitigate is just collaboration and implementation, because these policies are already in existence. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of times we sit with issues, medical issues, that we may not realize are emergencies. And so we say, well, okay, it might get better. What would you classify an emergency to be? Because we think, okay, if there's no blood spewing all over the place or something, then maybe we can wait a little bit. How would you classify an emergency if we had come into contact with it?
So just think about our definition of what an emergency is, right? So if your organ function is being affected, then that counts as an emergency. So if you're having shortness of breath that is, not going away, that is continuous, or if you're having chest pain that is, out of the ordinary, then that should prompt you to go to an emergency facility. If you are choking, for example, that is also an emergency. If being unresponsive or not being able to be to perform your regular function as usual, that counts as an emergency. And what you say is true, that most of the times people wait for one reason or the other before going to the facility, and therefore by the time they come in, to some degree there's some harm that has been caused. So I think I would advise people not to wait too long. If you're feeling unwell, if you're not feeling like your usual self, then it's best to go to a health facility and be assessed, such that if there's an urgent intervention that needs to be made, it can be made in good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's demystify some things. Some homemade emergency response innovations. When someone suffers a burn, I don't know what Nduh does or would do, but I've seen people have sprinkled wheat flour. Is that okay? I don't know whether that okay is the right question. Also, when someone ingests something poisonous, maybe they've drunk a poison, is it in order, like people try to induce puking, maybe giving them lots of water. But there are instances you hear when you reverse, the reaction is worse. So help us demystify some of these homemade
remedies.
Yes.
Okay. So I've seen and encountered scenarios where patients come with flour on the burns. So it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yes. Because it increases the risk of complications or infections, because this flour has been processed in a non-sterile fashion. So when you put it on the skin that is already compromised or hurt, you are potentially making things worse. And then when it comes to ingestion of poisons, yes, inducing vomiting is not helpful, because you find some of these substances are very corrosive. So it like corroded your esophagus when it was going down, and then now when you try to induce vomiting, it's again getting an opportunity to do the same. And sometimes that can cause small tears that will cause these substances to spill where they shouldn't spill. Again, you can find bleeding happening because of people shoving things in the mouth. Also, I think something I've encountered is the patients who have a seizure or a convulsion, and then you try to, shove things in the mouth. So, yes, that's not advisable. You're likely to not only hurt the person, but also hurt yourself, because in that scenario, they can, really bite off your finger. Yeah, so such remedies have, they are being passed on from one person to another, but they can be harmful.
But in defense of shoving things in someone's mouth when they're having a
A convulsion. Yeah.
You're trying to protect them from biting their tongue off. That's the panic reaction. So what are some of the especially in those three cases that we are trying to demystify in terms of burns? Is there anything one can do at home before the pre-hospital in terms of having ingested poison and the convulsion? Is there sometimes sitting and watching is really not an option.
Yeah. So with burns, definitely depends on how bad the burn is. Yeah. Majority of the burns are caused by, something hot liquid or hot water spilling. So you can run it in cold water and then go to a facility.
Okay.
Don't try to pop, any blisters that form. No. Just run it in cold water. It might help with pain, and then go to a health facility. When it comes to ingestion of substances, again, do not induce vomiting. Do not give milk. I know people give milk to try and neutralize, but it doesn't work. So don't give milk. Rather note what the poisonous substances is. Make a note of it, because it might be helpful to the healthcare provider to know what to give and what not to give, depending on what has been ingested. Get them to a health facility. For in the case of a seizure, again, calling for help, and then just making sure that they are safe, you are safe, and they are safe. So, for example, if someone is in a chair and they start having this convulsion, the best thing you can do is to make sure they don't fall down and hurt themselves, and then you can place them on their left side. Majority of the time, within a few minutes, it should abate. Yes, they're going to be snoring. It's very, can be quite shocking. All right. So, but just lay them on their left side and make sure that they're not in an environment that, is going to hurt them more. Say someone was cooking and they're next to a stove and they start having a convulsion, just move them away from the fire, lay them on the floor, and don't try to hold them. Because that might cause more damage.
So we're talking about emergency medicine, and there are a number of questions that are coming through because now we have an emergency specialists in the house. So when we're talking about the policy and things like that, there are also certain situations which are common that people just don't know what to do. The burns and such have been one of them. Another big one that is coming up is when somebody may have been electrocuted. What is the first port of call to do there before you bring them to a medical facility if necessary?
Do you hit them?
Shock them back into reality?
Oh, no. So again, I will emphasize on safety for yourself. If you're witnessing such an event happening, sometimes, the response is you want to help, you want to go and,
grab them.
Grab the person and move them to safety, but you might also conduct the same electricity and in turn get electrocuted. So if you are not, or if it is not safe to approach, do not approach. Your safety comes first. That's a priority. Call for help. And then if most of the time after the shock is delivered, someone falls to the ground perhaps and is rendered unconscious. Again, make sure it is safe. You can just lay them on their left side, call for help, and wait for the emergency personnel to go and bring them to a health facility. I'm trying to avoid instances where I'm telling people, do this, and they're not safe. So your safety is a priority. Yeah.
What about when somebody is bitten by a dog?
You bite it back, right?
That's what would make the news.
No, don't bite the dog back. If you're bitten by a dog, majority of the times there might be a stray dog. So cases of potentially the dog having rabies is high. So if you're bitten by a dog, don't bring the dog to hospital. Don't bite the dog back. Yes, go to a healthcare facility. And of course, there are some questions that we ask. For example, if it's a domesticated dog, those ones are most likely vaccinated. So depending on where the injury is located, when the dog was vaccinated, or if it's not vaccinated, then there's a rabies vaccine. That is available in hospitals.
There's a couple more of these. And if you were to have stepped on rusty nail or been scratched by a piece of metal, what should you do?
I don't want to say, but
What did you do?
What did you do?
You pee on it.
You pee on the rusty nail?
Ask boys. I'm speaking for boys.
Okay.
Well, there's an emergency specialist in the house. Perhaps she can tell us if you've been doing the wrong thing.
Yes,
it's sanitized, but please.
Okay.
Yes. So if you step on a rusty nail, you go to a health facility. Again, questions will be asked. If you have received a tetanus shot within 10 years, most likely you don't need to get another shot.
Okay.
But if not, or you can't remember, then it's, you're better safe than sorry. So again, there's a tetanus IM injection that we give, and that is preventive. Yeah.
Like, for real, medically speaking. Why are you laughing? Peeing on a fresh wound is not medically recommended.
No, it is not.
Okay.
Yes.
We need to have a conversation with a lot of boys.
A lot of demystify a lot of things.
Yes. No.
And comments will tell you. I wonder how many people will confirm they've done that. But it's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Do not pee on fresh wounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So another one that comes up we've done the burns. Another one that comes up for a lot of folks is then if a tooth, and this one happens to me actually, if a tooth has been knocked out, we've been told that the first thing that you do before you go to the emergency is that you either wash it in milk and put it back, and then find your way to the especially for a child. What do you do in that situation?
So yes, putting it in milk is actually one of the things that people do at home. That
it's correct. Not those other things.
Okay. Yes, it's correct.
Okay.
So you can also put it in a container that has milk, and it's not a must that you attach it. And then again, go to a facility that has dental facilities. Yeah, depending on the extent, whether it's the whole tooth or half of the tooth, there are certain remedies that can be offered. But yeah, putting it in milk for the meantime works. And then also, there are also cases of maybe you were working and you chopped a finger. You can put it in ice and then bring the finger in with you when you go to the hospital.
Because
there's potential depending on how severe the injury is and other things. But putting it in ice and bringing it along, that's a good thing to do.
And the eye, putting it in water.
Yes. So with the spillage, let's say you were washing laundry and jik accidentally spilled in your eye. Yes. Washing it, run lots of water. Tap water is just fine. Run
fresh.
Yes. Run water through it and then go to a medical facility.
Okay. So one other that comes in is that when you get sand or dust in the eye that looking at cornea scratches and things like that, if you get sand in your eye, the initial thing is to want to rub it. What should you do in that situation? And is this classified as an emergency issue, or any particle in your eye for that matter?
So if you get sand in your eyes, wash it out with lots of water. And because of scratches to the cornea that would happen with rough substances such as sand can potentially lead to complications down the line that would affect vision and quality of life. So yes, that counts as an emergency because it might potentially affect the functioning of your eyes. So just wash it in water and go to a health facility. There are some certain tests and remedies that we offer depending on the extent of the injury.
Okay.
Is there, but I think this is obvious, if a child ingests something, some of the things they are not harmful because maybe they are not pricky and sharp, and sometimes there's a temptation of just wait it out. They will excrete it. But who should make that determination?
That should be the doctor. So yes, ingestion of coins. Children also put beads and other things up their nose and ears. So it is important for the child to be evaluated by an emergency trained healthcare worker. because trying to remove it or manually by yourself at home can cause more harm. So yeah, just bring them to a health facility. Now, when it comes to ingestion, the coin or this foreign object might go either to the windpipe or the trachea or the food pipe, the esophagus. So of course, if it was swallowed and it went through the food pipe, chances are it's going to be passed out. But that's a decision that should be made upon evaluation. If it goes into the trachea, then it might cause shortness of breath, difficulty in breathing. You might hear a strange sound coming from the throat, and that is a proper emergency. Yes.
One more demystifying.
There's another one after the one more. Okay.
A fish bone gets stuck somewhere along the esophagus, along the way. Some people advise just eat ugali,
and turn the other,
and cough it off. It's not as serious, but I'm using a fish bone as one of the many things that could. But what should be the appropriate, or you just go to a medical care? Or is there anything you can do at home, especially for the adults?
Yeah. So swallowing, trying to swallow whatever semi-solid food might help, because this round, let's say it's ugali, it's round, you've tried to chew it or swallow it as big as possible, and then it will stimulate movement, peristalsis. So that might help to move the fishbone down. But other times that might not work. So if you're still someone still feels like there's something stuck on their throat, you're frequently clearing your throat, then it's important for you to come to a health facility where it can be assessed. Again, it depends on how big the bone is and how it's lodged. Definitely when you try to swallow a piece of ugali, it might dislodge and it will go down smoothly. Other times, if it's a long fish bone and it the way it's angled is a bit off, then it might not be possible to dislodge at home by yourself by trying to eat a solid object. So then sometimes there have been cases where people come and they have to get a procedure called an endoscopy, which involves them, making sure they're not feeling any pain, and then manually going in and taking out the fishbone.
Okay. Yeah. So the presence of blood is usually a no-brainer. For anybody, it's like, okay, this is crazy, we've got to go somewhere. And also realizing that blood from certain parts will be more than others, and so might cause concern. And one of those is nosebleeds. With nosebleeds, when is it an issue, or when is it just pinch the bridge of your nose and you're fine? When is that a situation whereby you must go to emergency? So
nosebleeds are quite common. It can happen especially if your nose is dry, maybe during the hot and windy season. So it's common. So when it happens, then perhaps it has not responded to the remedies, which I'm going to talk about in a few. Let's say within 15-30 minutes, then that's a cause for concern. Perhaps you should come to a facility to be evaluated. Now, I know what we were all told is if your nose bleeding, pinch your nose, throw your head back, and wait. So the appropriate thing to do is actually, yes, you can try to pinch the bridge of your nose, but don't throw your head back. Sit up straight. Sometimes because the nosebleed might be dramatic or it might be large in amount, sometimes the blood tends to get into the throat. So people, try to spit it out or swallow. It's okay, you can do that, but the leaning back doesn't help. So just try to be calm, definitely.
So if this persists after 30 minutes, then you want to go to the hospital? Okay. Earlier on, you mentioned, as our time winds down, you mentioned this, and I think it's great because we're in a time where the digital space consumes a lot of. You mentioned the app that you can actually download in case you need to call someone, apart from the 999-111. Is it Casualty? Is that what it's called?
Yes, it's called Casualty app.
And anybody, how does it? Anybody can download it and use it, and then be able to call emergency services?
Yes. So it's a multi-purpose app. It has as I said, when you download it and you sign up, it asks you, are you a healthcare worker or are you not? So if you're not, then there are some things that will not be available for you. So if you're just a regular non-healthcare provider, you'll have access to emergency ambulance services. And when you're on the app, it will, let's say you've had a road traffic accident and you have the app with you, you get on to the app, you'll find a phone number for ambulance services, you call, the dispatcher is able to triangulate your position and find the nearest ambulance that's closest to you, and therefore they will dispatch it to you. So yes, it has provisions for that. For the healthcare workers out there, it has algorithms that have been developed that even in a rural facility or an urban facility, there are things that can help you in terms of managing such patients.
It's interesting because Kenya has 100,000 plus community health promoters, who then in a lot of cases, especially in what we would not at peri-urban or rural areas, would be the first port of call for something that was an emergency. Would it make sense for them also to have access to this, or would it be something that should be promoted at that level?
I think it should be promoted for clinicians working in the facilities. Commonly, the community health promoters or workers, they're more within the community. They are the link. So it might not be as helpful to them, but I think just maybe increasing awareness that such an app exists for ambulance services and things like that, that's something that they can take up. But when it comes to actual practice, it's more beneficial for those who are working in healthcare facilities.
What would be your call to action as we wind this conversation down about what folks need to do when it comes to emergency care?
When you meet an emergency, make sure you are safe, call for help, and be aware of your rights, that you are entitled to emergency care services in any hospital in the country.
That does it for the Situation Room this week. Our Healthy Friday conversation with Dr. Sheila Chek has been around emergency medicine and the Aga Khan University Hospital, leading that conversation about what you need to do and what you need to remember. Thank you for doing this with us this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for winding down the week with us. These conversations have been important for us to have. We do it again Monday, God willing. Have a great weekend. It's 10 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the news. I'm Sheila Tembor. Interior PS Raymond Omolo has pledged full cooperation with the IEBC to ensure the success of the 2027 general election. Speaking during a consultation meeting between the IEBC and the Ministry of Interior,